And welcome back to the Movie Hero Network. And this is Recast, episode number 10 of Recast. We are 10 episodes in, Jordan, can you believe it?
10
Of the
episodes.
new and improved Recast. Yes, I am your host tonight, Austin Fez Hell of the new and improved Recast. And I've got a great panel with me to recast what is definitively a Christmas movie. And as such, I know there's been other shows that have been doing that. Look, John Matthias is a Christmas movie. He's the man. So
Yep.
mine Die Hard. So that's what makes it a
He
Christmas
says it.
movie. Debate over. But yeah, anyways, I got a panel with me to do our best to recast the perfect Christmas action movie that is Die Hard. That's what we do here on Recast. We attempt the impossible. But first, starting with the movie hero himself, Jordan Anderson. How's it going?
It's going good. Yeah, this one was kind of interesting for me because I thought that I'd seen Die Hard quite a few times, but I probably really only seen it, if I'm being realistic, about 3 times. So I'm definitely due for a rewatch. Actually, I had it on in the background today while I was working at just watching some clips and so. But surprisingly, though, I still think that I got some pretty solid picks for my recast. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, no, I think it's all right. We got Wolfman. How's it going?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Big Die Hard fan. One of my favorite action movies, one of my favorite Christmas movies. I watch it every year for whatever reason. It's a tradition to watch while I wrap presents. I don't know why. It is like a tradition that I have while I'm wrapping presents in the background.
You try to finish wrapping before that classical music hits its full crescendo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're like trying to do it for that scene happens. But I stuck with a fun theme tonight. I'm doing all 80s actors since it's a movie that came out in 1988. Thought that'd be kind of fitting with the whole 80s theme of it. So I'm casting it as if it was released in that time. So that would be fun.
Yeah, I'm going with a theme tonight too that'll reveal in just a minute when we get to our first pick. We got another fan who's a big fan of action movies. We got Steven Shepard. How's it going, Steven?
Yeah, I love Die Hard. It's in my top 20 of all time. And yeah, this one was actually though pretty difficult to do. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
No, I mean, and that's the idea, is that these are like perfect movies that we can't imagine anybody else playing all the roles, and that's why we tackle them, those movies that we all know and love, and we attempt the impossible here on Recast, so that's what we got going on. I'm sorry, Jordan.
Yeah, because so some of you guys went with the theme. I almost was tempted to go with the 90s theme, which you'll see that I have some 90s picks, but they're not all 90s, but there's a few of them in there. So I almost went, but I was like, I'll kind of mix it up a little, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can cast anyone for any reason, but we'll go ahead and jump into it. How it's going to work is we got 10 roles tonight. We're going to attempt to recast from Die Hard, so we're going to attempt to blow through them fairly quickly. We'll go around the horn. Everybody will get a chance to talk about the recast pick. So when we go to you, I'll introduce the person that we're recasting, and then we'll go around the horn. Everybody has a chance to do it. Do kind of like just a minute pitch. But what you're doing is you're pitching your pick to the rest of the panel. See, because if we voted on Recast, we would all vote for our own picks. That cancels everything out. So how it works is we essentially pitch your pick to the other 3, and then we go around the horn once everybody has their picks out in the open, and we rank everything that you've heard. So you'll rank them essentially 3 to 1. So a third place gets 1 point, a second place gets 2 points, and a first place gets 3 points, and then whichever of the picks of the panel has the most points is what becomes kind of the official recast of the episode, and kind of wins that role, if you will. So listen closely to your panelists' pitches and what they got going on, and essentially it's the one you're most interested in to kind of least interested in. So that's kind of how it goes. But yeah, any questions? Other than that, it's pretty simple. So you guys have all been on Recast before, so that's how it works. All right. Well, if you guys are ready to roll, we start at the kind of bottom of the cast, sort of like, least important to the plot to kind of most important to the plot, kind of work our way up. We'll work our way up to John McClane. He'll obviously be the top one. So we'll start at the bottom. And what we're going to start with here is we're going to start with sort of, the biggest henchman. So we're going to start with Carl here. So the henchman Carl, played by Alexander Godunov. And let's get a very quick intro on getting a little patient with his brother there, waiting on him to rewire everything. But yeah, so Carl, played originally by Alexander Gudinoff. I believe he was a ballerina in real life, something like that. But yeah, he is Hans Gruber's sort of right-hand man. And we'll get started and see what everybody picked for this role. So I will elect to go last to get things started. So we will start with the man to my right. We'll start with you, Jordan, and throw out your pick for recasting Carl.
So I think for mine, I went with a guy that I feel like can pull off just about damn near any accent. I think that he's really great with that. I think that he kind of has that kind of like European kind of henchman kind of look if you really look at him and like picture him with long hair. So if you put him with the long hair and he's played his fair share of villains before. I went with Alexander Skarsgård for mine. So yeah, and I mean he's done like anything from like action to horror to just like straight up dramas and just some like and we've seen him quite a few times with the long hair. I mean, he was Tarzan for Christ's sake, so he had long hair in that. And I think that he could just do that exactly what we just saw on the screen that we saw Carl doing there. So yeah, I went with Alexander Skarsgård.
All right, so Jordan goes with Alexander Skarsgård. Yeah, I tried to get pictures that sort of represent that. Again, it's hard to do for every character, but I do my best. So I try to pick those long hair picks for the Carl actor. So there's your Alexander Skarsgård right there. Wolf, what you got for Carl?
So for me, I am going with a very inspired choice. This is like the one I've felt the most passionate about, or one of the ones I felt the most passionate about, because not only is this actor actually Russian in real life, but I wanted to cast someone who looked menacing like a henchman, but who also was a badass during the 80s, was in a lot of action stuff, played villains and heroes, and is brilliant at playing both parts. And that is Dolph Lundgren from the 80s right there. Like, look at that. That is like such a badass menacing. If you saw that person near you, you would be very scared by him. He brings that presence. I can
almost I can touch his muscles right there. Ooh.
I'll
oil him up real quick.
It's 3D. Oh my gosh. But yeah, he is somebody who can pull off action super well, as we've seen in the 80s. He has like the slick blonde hair, the long blonde hair during that time. That he can get that perfectly. He's got the physique. Just everything about Dolph Lundgren, I feel, matches the character of Carl perfectly. So that's why I went Dolph Lundgren.
All right, so Wolf goes with Dolph Lundgren, kind of circa 80s, circa his prime.
Yeah.
All right, Steven, we are going to you for your pick. So make sure you unmute yourself and hit it. What you got?
Well, I didn't go with anyone that's German or Russian, but but I went with a guy he's like Dolph Lundgren. He's known mostly as an action star, but he's played a villain a few times, and that's Jason Statham. Yeah.
Okay.
I found the long hair of Statham from some movie. I think
he's on the long hair. Nice.
Occasionally, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he can play a good bad guy with it, like any of them, like he did in Cellular, and of course, they turn him into a good guy later in the franchise. But he started off in the Fast and Furious franchise as the main villain in Furious 7, and he was great in that. So yeah, I think he'd make a great henchman bad guy.
All right, so Steven goes with Statham, the man Statham. All right, and I went with so I'm going with an all 70s theme tonight. So if the movie was made in the 70s, sort of right after the book was published in the 60s, so this is based on the detective, and there was a movie called The Detective with Frank Sinatra, but I did not go with Frank Sinatra. I can assure you that in his prime. But let's just say they took that book and made it in the in the 70s. Took a few years and rolled with that. So I went with with another guy that's very well known, but in the 70s, who is Austrian, who could just speak, non-English the whole movie and be intimidating, and you wouldn't even need to do a lot of dialogue, himself. I went with the 70s, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I think he could do this again in his prime. Schwarzenegger is a big checked up dude. He's got that, Eastern European look to him, and again, his earliest roles were the ones where he didn't talk a lot, and that's perfectly fine for what he does. You look at Conan, the original Terminator, things like that. This could be pre that. He could just be a background henchman guy and really stand out, and you go, man, who is that guy? And just kick John McClane's ass and yell in German and could just be that background guy, because we're not talking about prime Arnold Schwarzenegger, in like 1990. We're talking about pre that. So yeah, I went with that, and I think he'd be really intimidating and really scary. So if he wanted to be, especially with good direction. So I went with sort of in his prime, Mr. Universe, getting started in his acting career, Arnold Schwarzenegger. So there you go. So that is our pick. So just to recap a little bit before we go to the votes, we've got Jordan's pick of Alexander Skarsgård. We got Steven's pick of Jason Statham, Wolf's pick of Dolph Lundgren, and my pick of kind of early, mid-70s Arnold Schwarzenegger. So, all right. Well, Jordan, rank them from 3 to 1, if you will, and I'll assign the point values.
All right. So number 3, I have Jason Statham, just because I just don't really see it. I don't know. And I mean, I can see him being a villain, but maybe not exactly that villain though. So, and then my number 2, I have Arnold Schwarzenegger for my number 2. Because I think that they could pull it off, but I mean, you just kind of have to put your mind in like a 70s Arnold Schwarzenegger. We don't really know him as he is yet, So you kind of have to have that mindset. It's a little tricky for me to totally get there, but yeah. But for number 1, I had Dolph Lundgren. I thought that was a pretty inspired choice. I think that's a pretty good fit. He may be like a little more buff, because I don't really see this guy being like super buff, but I mean, I think it works pretty well though. I mean, like that aside, that's a very minor nitpick. I think he would work though.
Got a couple of picks in the comments. We got Michael Bowen. We got Jacob Harper saying a little Dolph Ziggler, the wrestler, if you know him.
So I honestly, I almost went either Dolph Ziggler or like Chris before
Chris Jericho.
Chris
Jericho. Chris Jericho. Yeah. Okay. So keep it coming in the comments, guys. We like looking into those. And also, if we have a tie, point value wise, we are going to go to the comments. So the first person to kind of break the tie in the comments. So you guys stick around because you will come into play.
Yeah.
But Wolf, what is your ranking for the other 3?
Yeah. So at number 3, I am going to say Alexander Skarsgård. And the reason I'm going to say him is because he doesn't come across as intimidating. He's like a whiny bitch. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know. Like, if I saw him, I'm like, come on, man. Let me at you. I'll fight you. Come on. That kind of thing. Like, he doesn't seem that menacing to me. He's like really too good looking, I feel. And then with Jason Statham, I have him at number 2, just because I feel, I don't know. I don't feel like he necessarily fits that part of like a goon. I feel he more fits the part of like the leading man behind it, and trying to stop the goon or whatever. Like, I feel like he fits that better than to actually fit that goon part. So I just don't really see him in that role. But I did like the Arnold Schwarzenegger choice. I considered that before I went Dolph Lundgren, because they were both in the 80s. But I did consider that. So I'll say number 1 is Arnold Schwarzenegger, especially if you had like Conan the Barbarian, like right before that, that kind of era. Yeah, I could see it definitely.
Okay. All right, Steven. Well, what is your ranking 3 to 1 on your other picks? Make sure you unmute yourself, buddy. So, yeah.
Okay. For number 3, I love Schwarzenegger, but I don't know if I necessarily see him as Carl. I just think Schwarzenegger is maybe a little too muscular. Number 2, only because I'm not as familiar with his work. I know he's done a lot of stuff, but I just can't really think of too much of his stuff. And that would be Alexander Skarsgård. Number 1, I'll go with Dolph Lundgren. I don't think he's the greatest actor in the world, although he's better now than he was in the 80s. I actually really liked him in his small appearances. I don't remember which season it was of Arrow. But yeah, I think but he can be kind of an intimidating presence, and yeah, he's a good pick.
And for mine, I'll go Statham and my third because I think he's more of a head villain than like just a goon in the background, and I get he's intimidating, you do the fight scenes, but if you're gonna do that, why not just make him the main villain? And I think he's done that plenty, just casting him in the background with like almost no dialogue. I just don't see the point in that. I'll go Skarsgård for number 2 because again, I've seen a few of his things, not super familiar with him. But yeah, I mean, I maybe he can do intimidating, maybe he couldn't, I don't know. And yeah, Lundgren, I considered Wolf, but he wasn't around the 70s. He was around the 80s. Rocky IV is his debut, so I think he would have been like 17 at the time. So I literally could not pick him. But I think it makes sense. I mean, because Lundgren in his prime, you can have him be that silent, badass killer. And again, Carl doesn't have a lot of dialogue. He has like 1 or 2 lines, where he's having like freakouts, and he's mostly just there to kick John McClane's ass and look scary. So I'm totally fine with that. So I'm totally fine going Lundgren because I kind of considered it, but I'm just out of the 70s, so I couldn't go with that. So all right. With the points we got, so we got Statham with 4, Skarsgård with 5, Schwarzenegger with 6, and Lundgren with 9. So Lundgren will take that one for our recasted Carl. So there we go. All right, so we will scoot on up the pack here, and we're going to talk about a guy who played an asshole in a lot of 80s movies. We're going to talk about William Atherton as Richard Thornburg, constantly bugging Holly McClane, Holly Gennaro throughout the movie, and just being that sort of thick-headed reporter. So let's just do a quick look, kind of near the end of the movie at as did you get that? William Atherton, you know him from Ghostbusters. Obviously, we talked about him in our Ghostbusters recast and recasting him. Real genius. He's popping up all over the place in the 80s. So once again, Richard Thornburg originally played by the great William Atherton. So we'll start in a different order this time. We'll keep rotating the order. Wolf, what do you have for an updated Richard Thornburg?
Yeah, so I talked about it the other day. So some of this I was like having a hard time with, so I went to Ross asked to get Ross's advice for some of the picks because I was like, I'm having a hard time with the 80s, and he mentioned David Caruso from the 80s, and I was like, you know what? I feel like that is actually fits. He kind of has that sniveling kind of wimp vibe to him, like this guy does, and then he also looks the part. I think that he would really make that good, like bumbling kind of reporter that you see in this movie, and that was a picture from First Blood. He plays a part, kind of, a lot like a little like that in First Blood, and other stuff like that. So I feel like he would fit this character really, really well.
Barbara, keep the wrestler picks coming. I want to get the Miz.
The Miz. Oh my god,
the Miz.
Yeah.
So keep them coming. I'm interested to see as you work your way up the cast what you got. Keep the wrestler picks going.
What's funny, Wolf, I was this close to picking David Caruso. I almost picked him too.
Oh, wow.
My backup, yeah.
Yeah, well, Wolf sticking with his 80s thing. So I found this pick from First Blood. Yeah, he's one of the kind of sniveling cops.
And not just because I'm ginger.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
All right. Steven, what you got for your Thornburg?
So generally speaking, I try not to race or gender swap. But I decided I'll go with the gender swap with this because I went with Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Wow.
Okay.
I mean, just look at her and, tone her down a bit from Seinfeld, and also look at her work in the MCU. And I could really see her, do that, douchey, do whatever she needs to do for her career, to get the story. I think she'd be great in it.
All right, so Brian, you can't pick Paul Gleason. He's already in the movie.
Yeah, right.
Paul Gleason is Dwayne Robinson in the movie. Can't recast one role for another role. He's already in the movie. All right, so
Paul Gleason used to play all the assholes in the 80s.
I
Yeah,
know,
right.
yeah. No, he's already playing an asshole in Die Hard. You can cast him as another and have double duty. All right, but Stephen going with swapping it out for Julia Louis-Dreyfus. All right, all right.
But
So speaking, yeah, go.
one of the funnier picks for the Carl character, Acres of Movies, went with Ed O'Neill. I don't know about that one, but
I disagree with that one. Yeah,
yeah.
I don't see it. All right, yeah. All right,
Are you
so
sure that was for Carl and not you know?
I don't know. It's all over the place.
I'm pretty sure because that was a while back that he put it. So I would think
Yeah, that's
so.
well. All right, so going with my '70s theme, I went with a great character actor who I'm a big fan of, who I think can play kind of Weasley and creepy, but he has a lot of range and he's a great actor and can be kind of a part of an ensemble as you look at stuff like Kelly's Heroes or a lot of his early movies, or Animal House, things like that. So I went with Donald Sutherland. I think Donald Sutherland could actually stand out as this one. And he even kind of looks like Thornburg a little bit, just a 70s version. You put that mustache on him. And yeah, you can see him kind of trying to mess with people in the background and kind of being that little Weasley sort of creepy guy, even in Animal House, like just kind of creeping on some of the college students and whatnot, and that, and kind of, showing up at Holly's door and delivering those lines. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Donald Sutherland. I think he could do one of these ensemble roles and still very much stand out, especially here in the 70s when he was really starting to break out. So yeah, I went with Sutherland for my pick for Thornburg. All right, Jordan.
Yeah, so I went with the guy that I think like really looks the part, and I think that he kind of has that kind of smug, kind of assholey kind of a look to him, and in a lot of roles that he's done, he does that very well. You may not be as familiar, but if you've seen some of these shows, which I'll bet you guys will at least recognize him. But I went with Damian Lewis. So you might know him from like Billions. He was also in Homeland. He has done a lot of TV stuff, and I think he even appeared a little bit in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood too. But yeah, like. But especially Billions, if you watch that, he's just like the smug asshole kind of guy that I think that can really fit that role, being just like the slimy reporter kind of type of guy. So yeah, I'll say Damian Lewis.
Okay, so going around the horn once again before we rank them, Wolf went with kind of an 80s era David Caruso. Steven swaps it out for Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I picked Donald Sutherland, a 70s era Donald Sutherland, and Jordan goes with Damian Lewis. So those are your four on the table for the Thornburg role. So Wolf, give me your 3-1 on this one.
So first off, I want to actually address where like last time I was more like I wasn't big on Alexander Skarsgård and Jason Statham. I actually really like all of these picks. I think every single one is good. Even Julia Louis-Dreyfus, even though I have her at number 3, don't let that deter that I don't like that pick, because like I'm like that is actually really fitting. Yeah, you're gender swapping the character, but like she has played kind of uptight, kind of stuck up kind of characters that we've seen like in Veep and other stuff like that. So I feel like she would actually be able to bring that on pretty well. Have her at number 3. Number 2 for me is Damian Lewis. I just think that I only because I'm not as familiar with his work that I don't have him at number 1, but I think that Damian Lewis does look the part, like you mentioned, but he also, what I've seen of Billions, definitely he is like an asshole on that show. So he definitely knows how to play that kind of part. My number 1 is Donald Sutherland. You're right. 70s Donald Sutherland, I could definitely see him just as like a, did you get that? Like as a kind of as a egotistical, snarky kind of reporter. I feel like that would actually be really fitting for a 70s era Donald Sutherland. So I'll go Donald Sutherland.
All right, Stephen. What do you have the ranking?
At number 3, wait. Sutherland, Lewis.
Sutherland, Lewis, and Crusoe.
Crusoe. Oh yeah, number 3. Look, I like David Crusoe a lot, but I've only seen him in like NYPD Blue, Jade, Proof of Life, and I really like, and CSI Miami, of course. I really like him as an actor. I just don't know. I haven't seen him in the 80s, I guess, so I don't know. I can't picture him.
Have you never seen Rambo: First Blood?
No, I have, but it's been a long time, and his role must have been tiny because I don't remember him in that, to be honest.
Yeah.
But number 2, I'll go with Damian Lewis, who I've seen in quite a bit, but I've never seen him play the Thornton type of person. But I can picture him still doing it really well. I do think he's great in Homeland, and he was in Dreamcatcher. I like that movie, actually.
Yeah.
But number 1, I'll go with Donald Sutherland. I can definitely see that smarminess, and especially in a lot of the villain roles that he's played. And although I will say this about Sutherland, I think he would actually make a great Hans Gruber.
Yeah, I considered it, but but this is kind of early in his career, so I don't know if he's like carrying movies quite yet until Body Snatchers. So he's not quite there. He was mostly an ensemble guy before that. For mine, I'm just not familiar with Damian Lewis. I got to go number 3. I haven't seen almost anything he's in, so I have no idea what his range is, what he does. Yeah, I'm not a TV guy, so it's more of a lack of awareness. I'll go David Crusoe for number 2. Again, I like him. I think I can see the swarmy thing. It works for me. But I think the Julia Louis-Dreyfus pick is kind of inspired, and especially if you look at prime, like just off her rocker, even just Seinfeld to a degree. Like I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and she's really shown her acting chops, with the VP show with the Veep and all that kind of stuff, and I think she's great. So I'll go Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I'll swap it out with it. I think it's a role you can swap. It's not that big a deal. So Jordan.
Yeah. Well, so I was gonna say when Stephen brought up Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I almost thought, well, that means you can have Courtney Cox from like a Scream vibe, being the like sleazy reporter, So but for me, I'm a little kind of reverse order. Like I really like Donald Sutherland. I just I don't know, I don't watch a lot of his stuff. I mean, I've seen him a fair amount, and I've seen him be villains, but I just don't really see it so much. I see him being like a bigger role. Like he's got to be like a bigger role in the movie. But and then Julia Louis-Dreyfus for number 2. I think she'd be really great, actually. Like if you were to swap it, like just have like a strong female character doing that kind of stuff, So but my number 1's gonna be David Crusoe. Like I actually like that pick. Like I said, I almost picked him myself. He was the first person that I thought of when I saw the character. I'm like, ooh, like David Crusoe. He looks just like him, and kind of has like a real similar vibe to him, like with the CSI Miami putting on the sunglasses and trying to act cool or whatever. So I'll go with David Crusoe.
All right, so this is a close one. Damian Lewis with 5 points, David Crusoe and Julia Louis-Dreyfus with 6. But just squeaking out, Donald Sutherland with 7 points. So there you go. So
I think in the comments, Brian has a great pick with Phil Hartman.
Phil Hartman. Yeah, Phil Hartman might be all right. Kind of annoying. That would work. A little Jingle All the Way kind of vibe.
Did you get that?
Yeah.
You can see that.
All right. So Sutherland takes that one. And we will move up to another, swarmy, slimy character. There's a couple in this movie. We're going to talk about Ellis, of course. Ellis, played by Hark Bachner, kind of weaseling up to Hans Gruber in those scenes. And we're going to see a little bit of that right now as we kind of get reintroduced to Ellis. So let's Hans Bubby. He's great.
Raise your hand if you picked Whitney Seibold.
Yeah, no, we've already got it. Whitney Seibold. No, I mean, look, we like the showdown, but Seibold, he doesn't do a lot of acting. So yeah, I know he looks like it.
I mentioned in the comments, I remember seeing a meme Don Jr. Saying,
yeah.
Oh yeah, nice.
All right. So yeah, we were talking about Ellis, of course, played by Hart Bachner. You can smell the cocaine on his face. But yeah, so let's get into it, Steven. Who have you updated for Ellis here?
so most of my picks are, more modern, but I went with someone who's still around, but it doesn't act as much, and he's a little older now. But I think a young David Duchovny would be actually great in this.
That's what I figured you were going for, so I went with a little younger pick of Duchovny.
Oh, yeah.
In the 90s. Yeah.
Because even though he can be, he is, he's known mostly, of course, for Mulder, and he can be very likable, but he can be smarmy and very douchey as well, like in his small part in Beethoven.
Yeah,
I remember him Beethoven. Yeah, I always forget he's in that movie. Yeah.
So yeah, I think
Freaking Stanley Tucci and Oliver Platter in Beethoven, if I remember that. But anyway.
Oh, then you have Charles Grodin on Bonnie Hunt.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
All right.
Well,
so,
if you've seen him in Californication too, he gets a pretty.
All right. So Stephen going with kind of a prime era David Duchovny. So yeah, my guy, you might not recognize his name off the bat, but he is the kind of the epitome of 70s slime. Like you want to take a shower after you watch him in roles. He was in the original Maniac. He was in the Rocky movies. He was in some of the Godfather films. Oh, with Joe Spinell. So Joe Spinell, if you know him, he's Gazzo and Rocky, the loan shark guy. Again, he's really creepy and Maniac. He can be that sort of fast talking guy, but he just kind of oozes 70s slime. You always kind of feel like he's on coke or some kind of drugs, and you can see him just being this guy who you immediately get a bad vibe off of, hitting on women, around the office, and just being that guy you don't really want to buddy up to, but you also kind of don't want to get on his bad side. So yeah, he's a guy that, again, you might not know his name, but you've seen him in the 70s. He was only around for most of the 70s and the early 80s. He passed away, I believe, in the late 80s. But yeah, he's been in a ton of movies. But yeah, I think he's total. I think you need to have like a character actor for this role, and he's great every time he shows up and really creepy. So I'll go with Joe Spinell. 70s era Joe Spinell. So all right, Jordan.
Yeah, so I went with one where I don't know if he's played too many villain roles, but I mean, I can really see him in villain roles, and I'd love to see him play just a real kind of down and dirty, which he does play some borderline ones I'll get into in a second, but I went with Bradley Cooper for mine. So, and he's had some kind of close ones where, like maybe Burnt, like he's a kind of an asshole in that movie. He was a villain in this movie Hit and Run. It's a weird comedy, but and then he's got the kind of charisma in The Hangover, and then like even to do the voice of a Rocket Raccoon, like he was almost unrecognizable doing that for Guardians of the Galaxy, but really had the smarmy kind of quirkiness and for that role too. So yeah, I think I could see Bradley Cooper doing it. So yeah, I'd love to see him just like do something like that. So yeah.
I'm all about the MJF Harper. Yeah, but he has to wear the scarf while he's doing the role and just
be right.
Asshole. Yeah, he has to do that. So that's part of it. So all right, Jordan going with Bradley Cooper for this role. All right, round us out, Wolf.
I'm surprised you modern guys didn't go Glenn Powell. I was thinking him when I was at some point. I was like, he's that very kind of douchey kind of guy. But the guy I'm picking was a really good douche from the 80s. He may not look just like him exactly, but he definitely has the same kind of charisma and snarkiness vibe to him, and that is William Zabka from the 80s right there. Like that just right there automatically screams sleazeball, that picture. Like he just, in the Karate Kid movies, he's a sleazeball, and a lot of his other 80s films he kind of plays that part. He's just really good at being this guy who's full of himself and thinks he's like better than everyone else and such, and when in reality he's like a wimp, and I really think that he plays that kind of a role really well, and I think that he would really fit this kind of role really well. So I'm going to go William Zabka
All right, so Wolf going with 80s era. William Zabka, a couple in the comments. Carol going with Joel McHale as Ellis. Not bad. Yeah, a little Sam Rockwell. Sam Rockwell's always a good pick for anything on here.
Yeah.
He gets recasted a
He
lot.
is.
He's a very versatile guy. So,
Nice.
but yeah, just recapping the picks once again, real quick. So, Stephen going with kind of earlier David Duchovny. I went with 70s Joe Spinell. Jordan goes with Bradley Cooper, and Wolfman goes with William Zabka. So, Steven, we will start with you. You're 3-1.
This is hard because I don't know who to put at 3 or 2 because I'm not really familiar with either Zapka or what was his name? Spinell.
Joe Spinell. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen the movies that a lot of the movies that you mentioned, but I don't remember him in them. So I'll say since I've seen a lot more of the movies from Spinell, I'll put him at 2 and Zabka at number 3. Only because I'm just not I'm not familiar with them at all. But it's funny. When I think of Bradley Cooper, one of my favorite TV shows is Alias, so that's how I think of him first. But then, and he's very likable in that show. But then, of course, I remember. Oh wait, though he's also Wedding Crashers and even to a lesser degree Hangover. So he can definitely do that douchey smarminess very well. So yeah, Cooper for number 1.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Zabka for my third one. He's too young for that role, like in the 80s. Like I don't see him as the experienced guy in the office that everybody knows is the little shithead around the office. Like I when I look at Ellis, it looks like the guy who's been hanging around that office for like a decade, and everybody's kind of sick of him, but the boss likes him, so they keep him around. Like it's one of those things where like nobody likes him, but the boss keeps him around because he's good at his job. I just don't see Zabka doing that. Yeah, I'll go with Cooper for number 2. He's a versatile actor. I like him. It works for me. I like Duchovny. I like that pick. And when Steven sent me the pick, yeah, if you go with like 90s Duchovny, and I actually thought of Beethoven. He's a douche in that movie. And yeah, if you go like early, he could be like douchey. Like even in that movie, he's like sitting back in the chair. He's like, "Come on, what's going on?" Like he's just doing this weird thing in that movie. And yeah, so I think it's a pretty inspired pick. I'll go with Duchovny as my top. Jordan.
Yeah. So for mine, I just have Joe Spinell at number 3. I don't even know who he is, so I can't really have anything to base it on. But and then my number 2, I have William Zabka, just because I can see it maybe like how he is now, but he hasn't really like done anything recently that I am not familiar with besides Cobra Kai. And he's kind of like a dimwit in that kind of, so I'm kind of like, I don't know, but and then David Duchovny, I think that's a pretty great pick. I think that I could see it, and I know that he's had roles like that. I just can't really like pull them off the top of my head other than Californication, but yeah, I think I could see it though.
All right, Wolf.
Yeah. Number 3, I'm gonna go Joe Spinell just because I have seen Maniac, but I think that's like the only thing I've seen with him. I have to see a little bit more Joe Spinell. I might have seen other stuff I just don't remember him in them, like Steven said. But Bradley Cooper, that is a really good pick because he's a very versatile actor. He can play a good guy, he can play a bad guy, he can do a good mix of everything. So I like that pick. But yeah, my number 1 is David Duchovny. I think that he just has that arrogance to him that like makes you just hate him, in the best way possible. Like and a lot of the stuff I've seen him in. So that's a good pick.
All right, so we got Spinell and Zabka with 4, Bradley with 7, and David Duchovny. Good pick, Steven, because you got it. So David, a little prime era, David Duchovny coming at you. So Steven getting on the board with a pick of David Duchovny. So Jordan's just got to catch up now and get one of his picks on the board.
It's coming. Just wait. But I like Acres of Moon's first pick where we said John Grise for Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. I could see that. So you had a lot of other people in there, but I like the John Grise pick.
Ben's father in Lost, right?
Oh yeah, you're right. I didn't even like put that together. Yeah. Whoa. Yeah.
All right. So we're scooting on up at the cast, and we're going with another prominent henchman and a very memorable one at that. We're going to talk about Theo. So sort of the tech guy of the group, the guy who's working on the vault, who's kind of running all the tech stuff around. Originally played by Clarence Gilliard in there. So let's take a quick look at Theo. So here we go.
Theo.
And the quarterback is toast.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, that was a little compilation somebody put together of Theo's stuff, but yeah, it had some of his lines and a little bit of that in there. So yeah, we were recasting the pick of Theo here once again. Clarence Gilliard playing him in the original movie. So yeah, I guess it's up to me for my first one. So sticking with my 70s theme, a guy whom I'm a fan of from one of my favorite comedies of all time, but he's actually very versatile. He was also in Vanishing Point. He's in Once Bitten later in the 80s, and he can do that kind of smooth, suave, guy who could play around with bigger star actors around him, and he does it in Blazing Saddles. I'm talking about Cleavon Little. I think Cleavon Little from Blazing Saddles, you can have him put on the headset. In Vanishing Point, I don't know how many people have seen Vanishing Point, the original one. He plays like a DJ, a very smooth talking kind of DJ, so it's a lot of like radio stuff and smooth talking to everybody, and delivering those lines. And I can see him being like, the quarterback is toast, baby. It's very, very smooth like that. As he is in Blazing Saddles playing Sheriff Bart. And so, yeah, I think he'd be perfect as kind of one of these ensemble guys who could stick out of the crowd. So, yeah, I'll go with 70s era Cleavon Little as my pick. So we'll see how that goes. I know not everybody's as familiar with him. That's the risk I run doing the 70s, so that's on me. But Cleavon Little. Jordan?
Yeah. So I went with one that I thought kind of looked the part. And I think that like he can kind of like mostly like embrace the kind of attitude and the charisma, and but yeah, I went with Giancarlo Esposito for my pick. So and I kind of see him from things like especially with the attitude going on, that from like Do the Right Thing, from School Days, even in The Usual Suspects a little bit, and then, of course, he's played a lot of villains. I mean, Breaking Bad, The Mandalorian. I mean, he's done quite a few. But then he's also been the guy that kind of helps people out. He was in like the Maze Runner movies, the guy they come across that like helps them out, and like he's always fun when he shows up. So yeah, Giancarlo Esposito.
Giancarlo Esposito. I was waiting for Barbara to post his pick, but Xavier Woods is his pick, especially with his recent heel turn with the New Day. If you've seen that, yeah, I could go to see that. Yeah. So I like his wrestling face. Keep him coming, Barbara. Yeah. All right. So Wolf, what you got for this one?
So I got a great character actor from the 80s who I feel also can work really well in an ensemble with big stars, because he worked with a big star in The Thing and did it perfectly, and that is a 80s Keith David. I'm going with Keith David. I feel like he's got that suaveness to him. He's got that sophisticatedness to be somebody who could like hack into computers and all that stuff. And if you've seen some of his other work in the 80s too, like he has a level of energy and charisma to him that I feel like still would match the character really well. But it would be a little bit more of a different take, but I feel like he would be able to really play the sophisticated and smart part of this character really, really well. And that's why I'm going with a young Keith David from the 80s as Theo.
All right, so young Keith David, 80s era Keith David for Wolf's pick. All right, Steven, round us out with your pick.
Trying to remember who I chose. Okay.
I'll give you a
I thought that I had him in my head, but yeah, you know who I almost went with actually I almost race swapped with him because I guess because of his work in White House Down, I almost went with Jimmy Simpson.
Oh,
because his character in that movie is very similar to Theo.
Yeah.
But no, I went obviously with Daniel Kaluuya, and I think he's got that. I think he can have that kind of charisma and bring that kind of humor to the part.
All right, so Stephen going with Daniel Kaluuya, obviously from Get Out and Nope, most Jordan Peele movies, things like that. So mostly known for him. All right, so running down the picks real quick, I got 70s era Cleavon Little, mostly from Blazing Saddles. Jordan goes with Giancarlo Esposito. Wolf goes with 80s Keith David, and Stephen goes with Daniel Kaluuya. So there you go. Yeah, so as far as the other ones, my third, I'm going to go with Esposito because I think the era you're going with, Jordan, he's too big of a part. Like he's too good of a, like big of a thing to do that. I don't know if he'd just slide in the background and stand out as one of those. If you had said do the right thing era Giancarlo Esposito, like bugging out, I
gotta think of it. I didn't really specify. I just said
I know,
the
but
best era you can think
I
of.
know, but I don't really want to sell your pick for you. Like
But
so if you had said like bugging
I
out,
did
like,
say it
that
when I gave my pitch. I said do the right thing.
I don't know if you specified that in your when you send it to me, I'd go with it, but I just can't do that.
Well, I said it.
So I'm gonna go with Keith David at number 2. I like the pick, but yeah, I can see him being more of like a physical guy though. So I think he's good actor, but just sitting in a chair being the tech guy, maybe. I'll go with Kaluuya. I like the Kaluuya pick. I think he could slide into that sort of ensemble role and bring the energy for just that ensemble. So I'll go Kaluuya. Jordan?
All right. Yeah. For me, it's a little different, but so my number 3, I have Daniel Kaluuya, just because I've only really seen him do like kind of darker kind of roles. Like he's really dark, even though it is like a kind of villainous kind of thing. It's not like he's doing like the villain per se. He's just like in some horror stuff. He's in some kind of like, I can't remember the like Black Panther one he was in, but like just some of those kind of things that like I just don't quite see it. But and then I have Keith David number 2. Like I really like him, but I just don't know if I totally like see it. But I think it's still pretty good. And then I have Cleavon Little, even though I haven't seen very much of him. What I've seen from him in Blazing Saddles, though, he definitely has the like attitude and the charisma, and like you put him in a modern setting, and I think that it could work. So yeah, I have Cleavon Little.
All right, Wolf.
Yeah, number 3, I am in full agreement with you, Austin. I have Giancarlo Esposito for not only the reason that you said, but also because he's a bit too much of a menacing bad guy. Like the thing is this guy is supposed to kind of almost be like a sniveling kind of, like he's smart, but he's also kind of supposed to be like really goofy and ridiculous. I just feel like I met Giancarlo Esposito in person, and like he gave me the look. And when I met him in person, like the Giancarlo Esposito look, and I was like, oh shit, I'm kind of scared to meet him.
I gotta run for the door right now.
And it's like I don't get that vibe from the Theo character, and so that's why I don't think that Giancarlo Esposito, I don't really see that as a fit. The next one, David Kaluuya.
I'll have to specify better next time, I guess, because do the right thing in School Days. If that doesn't say it, I don't know what does. So.
But the next one I'm going to go with is Daniel Kaluuya. I think some of his other performances, like Nope and Get Out, and a few of those other ones, I feel like they really do kind of match the charisma of the character. So I could definitely see it. But my number 1 is also Cleavon Little. I think that everything I've seen him in, from Blazing Saddles to his other work in the 70s, I think that, yeah, he's got that charm and that charisma and that zany personality, but he also looks like a fucking nerd. I feel like that's perfect for the character, because you kind of have to look like a nerd, and that's why I definitely think he fits a lot. So that's all I'm gonna clear now.
All right, Stephen.
I have Cleavon Little at number 3 only because I haven't seen him in anything. The number 2 is Giancarlo Esposito. The things that I've seen him in, like Breaking Bad, and he always to me seems like he has a very dignified presence. Not that Theo is, Theo's kind of a goofy character. So, I've seen Do the Right Thing, but I don't. It's been a long time. So I have Keith David at number 1 because I could see that. Yeah, I like Keith David a lot.
Okay. All right. So we've got a little bit of a situation because we've got Giancarlo at 4, Khalil at 6, and we got Cleavon Little and Keith David tying it up at 7. So we're going to go to the comments and see what it goes to as far as where the votes tap out. We have a lot of people watching, so it's not just like one people. So spam those comments and see what we got, and let's see what kind of gets the majority. So let's go with a tie. We got Cleavon Little versus 80s era Keith David, kind of both in their prime, and let's see where it goes.
And Keith David, because Brian had
Keith
it.
David, Brian had it. Barbara's got Little. Caro's got Little. Richie's got Keith David. It's still split. So we got 2 and 2.
Do you go with the first, or do we go with the majority?
We got a lot of people watching. I was going to go with the majority, but it's still tied. But Leo breaks it with Keith David. Leo breaks it with Keith David. So we had 2, and then that's a 5th. So that's fine. All right. So Keith David will take it again. I'm a fair man. I'm not picking mine. So 5 total votes, and Keith David takes it. So there you go. So Wolf gets a primary Keith David for that one. All right, we're scooting on up, and we're going to the sort of other charismatic African American gentleman from the role. So we're going with limo driver Argyle, who pops in and out of the movie. Played originally by Devereaux White. I think he passed away recently, if I'm not mistaken. Not too long ago, something like that. But Devereaux White playing Argyle, and let's get a little reacquainted with. This is kind of a longer clip, so I'm just going to stop it at some point, just about 40 seconds. All right.
I think you're getting Argyle mixed with Theo, because I think it's the actor who played Theo who died recently.
Oh, is that right? So okay, sorry. I thought I saw something when I was looking up pictures about somebody said like rest in peace Devereaux White. I could be wrong, but maybe I was wrong. So sorry about that. I might get them mixed up, but there you go.
I'm on Wikipedia and it doesn't mention
okay, gotcha. So I just remember seeing something about somebody that passed away from the cast, so one of the two. All right, so we're going with Argyle here, once again played by Devereaux White, limo driver, kind of bouncing in and out of the movie, doing a little heroic stuff at the end. But we are going all the way back around to Jordan. So we are back around to you.
All right. So for mine, I actually went with the guy that for sure he has charisma in like almost every role that he's done. He's like one of the most charismatic actors out there, I would say. And I can just see him being the guy that's just happy to have a job as a limo man and just be all over it. And I went with Chris Tucker for mine. So and if you think about him, especially Rush Hour, which I get like when he's saying like we got everything in this limo. We got CD, we got TV, we got all this stuff, and then there's literally a scene where it's like, don't you ever touch a black man's radio and like all that, and then like seeing him as Smokey from Friday, or seeing him in like Money Talks, or like even The Fifth Element. He's doing like a really kind of out there thing, but he still has the kind of goofball, kind of wacky, kind of all over the place kind of attitude. And yeah, I think that Chris Tucker would be a fun one for Argyle. So yeah, all
right,
Tucker.
All right, so Jordan, of course, going with Chris Tucker. I had a feeling when he was sending his picks, he was going to go with Tucker on this one. I just had a feeling in the back of my head. All right, Wolf, what you got?
I have the man who had the ultimate charisma, maybe the best charisma in all of the 80s, and that is Eddie Murphy. I just feel like, imagine him in his like Beverly Hills Cop era, being like, man, we got everything in this car. We got CTV, we got this and that. Like just with Eddie Murphy, the way his spunky personality is, I could totally see it. I could see him being this like fun limo driver that just drives around, cracks jokes, and does all this stuff. Like just is super witty and kind of is the comic relief of the whole movie. I could definitely see that, and especially around this time too, like when he's first really getting started with his career. I feel like it really matches with how Eddie Murphy was in the 80s. So yeah, I with everything that the character is and everything I've said, I feel like Eddie Murphy is like the perfect choice to play Argyle.
All right, so Wolf going with kind of prime 80s Eddie Murphy there. So throwing those shades on. There you go. All right, so Steven, what you got?
Yeah, this was tough for me. I was trying to think of actors in their 20s and for that are currently working. I just was like really hard, but I I chose Mason Gooding because, and I did like him actually in the two recent Scream movies. So I think he'd be a decent choice.
Okay, so Stephen going with Mason Gooding. I needed a little help with my pick because some of you guys may not remember this, but you might be familiar once I play a quick quote from him. He's a television actor, and again, I think it's important to have like kind of a character actor-y sort of guy for this role, a little bit of an unknown. But I got one word for this pick: dynamite.
Yeah, figure that makes the number 8 look like the number 1, and a smile that lights up the night. And it all belongs to Kid Dynamite!
So I'm going with Dynamite. I'm going with 70s era Jimmy J.J. Walker from Good Times. Because, again, if I go with a 70s actor who, again, is a little kind of kind of skinny little dude, but always happy. He's a ladies' man on that show. He's always kind of flirting with the ladies. You remember a lot of this movie is Argyle later on, just on the phone, talking to the girls, kind of chatting them up, always trying to make everybody laugh and make everybody smile and keep everything positive. I don't know how much you guys have seen of Good Times and things like that, 70s era. JJ Walker's still doing stand-up and things like that, so he's still around. But I think, again, prime era, 70s JJ Walker, Kid Dynamite himself, I think could have a lot of fun with this. And he's a perfect scene stealer on Good Times, just one of the ensemble. And I think he'd be a lot of fun. So I went with Dynamite, Jimmy JJ Walker. So there you go. All right. So that is our picks. So just running them down one more time. Jordan goes with kind of prime era Chris Tucker. Wolf goes with prime Eddie Murphy. Steven of Mason Gooding. And my pick of Jimmy J.J. Walker. So, Jordan, what you got?
Well, I wonder what J.J. Walker would say nowadays if you asked him to say dynamite before he'd probably slap you or something.
I think he does it. He still does it first thing when he comes out on stage. He's kind of like Rob Schneider. If you ever see him do stand up, he gets it out of the way early. Like Rob Schneider will come out on stage and go like, you can do it just to get out of the way. You know what I mean? Like he just does it.
Yep, he did it at a convention that I went to. Yeah, but yeah. So for me, I went with Mason Gooding for number 3, just because I'm not really that familiar with him. So I probably need to see a little more. But I did see Scream, and he was all right. And then I went with Eddie Murphy just because I think that like he's like kind of too much of an A-lister, kind of like too much of a well-known, and maybe he should be a little less known. But I mean, he is still good. I mean, I'm just kind of splitting hairs, but
in the 80s was he as well known?
Pretty early in 48 Hours in 1982. He was pretty well known.
Yeah.
SNL. I mean, he's
SNL,
pretty well known
yeah.
SNL. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he kind of is.
But yeah, Jimmy Walker, I think that's a pretty great pick. Like I think he could pull it off and just be the guy kind of hanging back in the limo. There's like some scene where he's hanging back and just has the music going and all that stuff, just waiting for him in his limo. So yeah, I'll go with JJ Walker.
All right, Wolf.
Yeah, so my number 3 is Mason Gooding. I just think I've seen Mason Gooding in more than just the Scream movies. I've seen him in a few things. I think he popped up in like what was it, Y2K or something? Or something. He popped up in some movie I just saw him and
I had to look it up and see.
But yeah, not a bad actor. He's good. I just don't think he fits this part. He just doesn't have the energy and the charisma, I don't think. And then my number 2, I'm going with JJ Walker mostly because I've only known him on Good Times. I'm just not as familiar with the rest of his work, but I do really like JJ Walker a lot. I think that he definitely would fit this role really well with like the whole dynamite and all of that fun energy. My number 1, I'm going with Chris Tucker because I was thinking to myself, I was like, before I did the 80s theme, I was thinking to myself like, oh, Chris Tucker would be really good. And then I decided to go with the 80s theme. So then I was like, dang, and I'm not going to do Chris Tucker. And but someone else went with it. And yeah, I feel like he just really matches the character well. I could see him saying all of our guys' lines. I could see him being that ladies' man kind of person flirting with all the ladies and all that stuff. So yeah, I'll go Chris Tucker. That's my choice.
All right, Steven.
I'm at number 3. I have Jimmy Walker. Although just watching that clip, it does look like he would do well as Argyle. But I'm also looking at his filmography, and he is in a couple of things that I've seen actually. He's in Airplane apparently, and he's in Home Alone and Home Alone 2.
He is.
Yeah.
I just saw Home Alone again. I don't remember him in it.
Huh.
Well, I'm on Google, and it's got it listed under his filmography.
He played Uncle Frank. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I'm just not familiar enough with his work. Although, like I said, that clip looked like he would definitely fit the part. Number 2, Chris Tucker is a pretty good pick. Although I would like it would be better if he toned down his a little bit, because Chris Tucker can be a little much sometimes.
Yeah.
But I have at number 1, I have Eddie Murphy. I love that pick, especially I'm thinking Eddie Murphy in 48 Hours, especially when he's first introduced, and when he's I love the pick of Eddie Murphy.
JJ Walker's not in Home Alone 1 or 2. I don't know what Google is telling you. I think Google fools you sometimes. He's not. It's no.
But is he in Airplane?
It just says he's in Airplane, but briefly in Airplane, he's just the guy who gives him the credit card machine to charge him for wiping down the windows. That's literally it. He doesn't really have any lines. He's just kind of there.
Maybe he's a producer because sometimes Google will list people who are also producers.
Yeah.
Home Alone 2, I mean, it's on IMDb, but it says celebrity number 3. I don't know what that means. I remember celebrity number 3 in Home Alone 2.
Looks like he's talking to him
show
on an airplane. Maybe no, that can't be it. That's the French guy. So I don't know.
No, that's not him. But yeah. Anyways, so yeah, I'm gonna go Mason Gooding for number 3. I'm just not as familiar with him outside of the Scream movies, and I don't particularly remember him standing out as being super charismatic. I'll go Eddie Murphy because he's a little bit of a too big a star for this role for around this time. You'd want him to have a bigger role if you're going to cast him in a big movie like this. But yeah, Jordan, I figured you'd pick Chris Tucker, and yeah, that's a pretty solid pick. You go Smokey era Friday, Chris Tucker, just talking everybody's head off and flirting with ladies. That's all he does in those movies. I'm with it. So I think it's a pretty solid pick. So yeah, earlier Chris Tucker, I'm down with it. So all right, so Mason Gooding, which is a couple of points there. Jimmy JJ Walker getting 6 points, so not bad. I tried to sell the best I could. I've got 7 points for Murphy, and yeah, it's gonna be 8 points for Tucker. So Jordan, you finally got one. So everybody's on the board.
On the board.
So everybody's on the board. Everybody's got some picks in there so far. So, and good thing we're halfway through, and everybody's got some picks. So it's all over the place. Nobody's running away with this thing. So I like it.
It's funny because one person put I cannot see that Jay Washington. No, but another Jay Farrow. Yeah, I could see
Jay Farrow. Yeah, and then Jacob was going with Jamaica era Kofi Kingston.
Another one I thought of too that would be perfect is JB Smooth. Have you ever seen that JB Smooth?
Oh, JB Smooth would be that'd be all right.
I feel like
yeah. All right. So we're scooting up. We're kind of getting into some of the meatier roles and the people that matter a little more to the plot. We're going to go up to Holly Gennaro or Holly McClane, played originally by Bonnie Bedelia. So let's take. All right. So we're looking at Holly, played originally by once again Bonnie Bedelia. So John McClane's kind of estranged wife here. So yeah, there's Bonnie Bedelia one more time, and I believe are we on Wolf this time? I believe. Yeah. Kick us off. Yeah. So kick us off, Wolf. What you got?
So for Holly McClane, I am going with an actress who was really good in the 80s and honestly really looks the part and has the same name, but the same name is not the reason I am picking her, and that is an 80s Holly Hunter. I think that Holly Hunter really looks a lot like Holly McClane, and also I feel like she has that same kind of personality and persona to her. Like she's got that strongness behind her, and that very strong womanly presence, while also still keeping her feminine side to her as well. And I could just see her really playing this part really well. She's got all the heart to play it, because I feel like Holly McClane is kind of a little bit like the heart and soul of the film, and I feel like she's got that kind of personality to her when you see her on screen. So I'm going with an 80s Holly Hunter.
All right, so Holly Hunter kicking us off for Wolf. Steven, what you got?
I went with Florence Pugh.
Mm.
Some of it was part of it was because of my choice with John McClane because I think she would match well with him. But and now even after looking at that clip, I think she's got that spunk and that toughness as well. Obviously, I mean she's done her share of really good dramatic and actiony roles, especially her being also I'm not a huge fan of the Black Widow movie, but she's really good in it. And so yeah, Florence Pugh.
Okay, so Stephen going with Florence Pugh. All right. And for my kind of 70s era pick, I went with somebody who really started breaking out in the 70s, who would get critical acclaim very, very quickly, who was in a lot of high profile movies, but wasn't always kind of the head actress until, the early 80s. So I went with a 70s era Meryl Streep. I think a 70s era Meryl Streep in this role. You look at like Deer Hunter, Kramer versus Kramer. She's really breaking out around this time, and she can match wits with anybody you put, as like Hans Gruber, John McClane, anything like that. Obviously, she could have, chemistry with anybody. She can act her ass off. Really stand out, as that, and still looks like that businesswoman, somebody you would trust to kind of make those decisions. So, I went with kind of 70s era, younger Meryl Streep in that role. So, Jordan?
Yeah. So for mine, I went with one, and this one was probably the hardest for me to cast, just because there's so many people that could fit this role. Like I was just going down list after list. I'm like, yeah, she fits it. But I went with Gina Davis for mine. So, and I especially think that like, yeah, Gina Davis, maybe even like, I don't know, like late 80s, early 90s. Gina Davis, I think she could really pull it off. And especially when like she has those roles where she has like the big curlier hair, maybe even something like Beetlejuice era, maybe that's kind of like the kind of era, or The Fly. She might be a little young in The Fly, maybe, but I think it's kind of getting there. And then like I think like even as she's kind of gotten older and kind of aged up, I mean, she was just at a convention we were at, and I saw her. I didn't really get to like go meet her, but I saw her from a distance, and yeah, she's still looking pretty good. So I'd say, yeah, Gina Davis is my pick.
Oh, all right. So running down the picks one more time. So Wolf picks swaps a Holly for a Holly with Holly Hunter. Steven goes with Florence Pugh. I went with a 70s era Meryl Streep for my 70s theme. And Jordan goes with Gina Davis. So there we go. All right. Wolf, kick us off with those rankings.
Yeah, at number 3, I'm going to have Florence Pugh. Maybe it's just her age. I don't know. But I don't know. I feel like she just doesn't seem like Holly McClane to me. She seems like some worker in the office that would be there that would crack jokes and say a few things. But like, I don't know. I don't really see her as like Holly McClane. Then Gina Davis is a really good pick. That is one I could see. I'm gonna say number 2 for that because she's like, whether you said The Fly or a few of her other things that she's been in, I feel like she is a really, really great actress, and I could see her in that role. But I mean, Austin did go with the GOAT. He kind of went. He went with Meryl Streep, who literally can play any part, any role you give it to her, drama, comedy, whatever it might be, and she'll do it. And I just feel like she would be able to hold her own against so many good stars in this movie. So yeah, somebody's Meryl Streep.
All right, Steven.
I didn't even notice. I didn't look up her age, but yeah, Bonnie Bedelia is older than I thought she was in the first.
She was 40 in the original Die Hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. Mm-hmm.
I might have gone with someone a little older actually if I had looked that up. For number 3, this is actually really tough. Okay, there's Holly Hunter.
Gina Davis, Meryl Streep. Holly Hunter,
Right.
Gina Davis, Meryl Streep. For you.
Yeah.
I love Gina Davis, especially in the '90s. I mean, I'm a huge fan of The Long Kiss Goodnight. But I gotta have her at number 3 just because, well, when I picture Holly, um, I think the other two come a little bit more. I'm gonna have Meryl Streep at number 2. It's close, but I have Holly Hunter at number 1 because when rewatching that clip, that definitely screamed, Holly Hunter to me. Comparing that. So yeah, I'll have Holly Hunter at number 1.
All right. Yeah, mine. I'm gonna go Florence Pugh at number 3. I need somebody a little more seasoned. Like she needs to look like she's like the vice president of a company. I think a little bit. Like she's been around the block. In this corporation, and she's a pretty high end executive. So, maybe in about 10 years, I'd pick Florence Pugh, something like that. But I still think she's young. She's still in her 20s right now. So yeah, I mean, I think she's a great actress though. I'll go Holly Hunter for number 2, just because I know her more from the voice and the animated stuff than a lot of her live action stuff. But I've taken to a few of her things, seen her, but I love Gina Davis. I'm a big fan of Gina Davis, and I think that's a great pick, Jordan. Like Gina Davis is great. I think she could slide right in here and be that that commanding kind of executive woman and the business lady, and really works. So yeah, I'll go Davis. All right, Jordan.
Yeah. So when I was doing some research for this, I caught a little clip from Brooklyn Nine-Nine where what's his name? I'm not based on the main character, but he's in the Andy Samberg. Yeah, if want to say Adam. But I mean, he's like in a room with the chief doing something, and then like his girlfriend comes in and like just barges in when he's in with the chief, and he's like, "You dressed as Bonnie Bedelia from Die Hard? Is this like a sex thing?" It's like, uh-huh. It's like bad timing. He's in there with the chief or something. But yeah, for my picks though, so this is probably the best casting choices so far. This is the toughest one. I could see any of these. I don't. I have probably not really a whole lot of reason. I mean, I just have to kind of rank them, but I think they could all fit. But I have Holly Hunter for number 3. I don't know. I see her, but a little less than the others. I'll say that. And then Florence Pugh, she's such a good actress. I think she can do almost anything, and I think that like she's been the reason that has carried a lot of movies. Like I can't remember that movie where she's in like a fake town kind of thing, and she's like with one of the Jonas Brothers or whatever, and that movie was bad, but she made it watchable though because she was in it. So yeah, and then Meryl Streep. Yeah, I mean, if it's gonna be down to being nitpicky, I mean, just go with the actor that can literally play almost any role that you give her and become anything. I'll pick Meryl Streep.
All right, so we got Florence Pugh with 4 points, Gina and Holly with 6 points, and Meryl Streep, or my 70s era Meryl Streep, taking the role of Holly. So there you go. All right,
Meryl Streep winning again. She wins everything every single time.
Yeah,
that's right.
Everything, but
that's right.
We got some pretty good picks in the chat. I was going to throw them up. But someone said Penelope Ann Miller. We got Laura Dern, maybe.
Sigourney Weaver is one I considered.
Oh yeah. Well, like a Sigourney Weaver-esque, I think she kind of embodies that kind of like feel of her. Jonathan has Susan Sarandon.
Yeah.
And I'm
Susan Sarandon.
not really that familiar with Kelly Lynch. I don't know. Someone might know her, but yeah.
Top Gun is Kelly Lynch, right? Or is that Kelly McGillis?
Kelly Lynch. The only thing I can remember seeing her in was in that Denzel Washington movie, Virtuosity.
Yeah, and then Barbara's pick, he goes with Bailey for this one. So okay. All right, so yeah, keep them coming. I want to see it because we're getting into the meteor stuff. All right, we're scooting again up the role a little bit, and again, not a gigantic role, but a very memorable role. We're going to talk about Dwayne Robinson, Paul Gleason, of course, another guy who always played an asshole in the 80s. Breakfast Club here. So Chief Dwayne Robinson, and let's get a little bit of Dwayne here. And oh boy, it looks like you just got verbally spanked there. But yeah, so
Who the hell cares about glass? Come on.
yeah, that's right. Steven's got it in his thing tag. Yeah, who gives a shit about
Yeah, right. Yeah, glass. He's got it. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we're talking about the great
Glass.
Paul Gleason. Yeah, very recognizable character actor from the '80s, playing Dwayne Robinson. All right, and I believe we are starting with Steven. Am I right for this one?
Yep.
So yeah, kick us off.
I think out of all the characters, this is my personal favorite of what I chose. Because I chose, I don't know if I'm going to be pronouncing his last name right or not, but Henry Czerny.
Henry Czerny, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he recently came back as Kittredge in Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. And he almost always plays assholes. And he's a fun actor to watch. He was also in the '90s. He was also, I remember him prominently in Clear and Present Danger. And I don't know if anybody here has ever seen the TV show Revenge, but he's a great bad guy on that show. It's no wonder why the 4th season was the worst season, because that's the season that he wasn't in. But yeah, I think he would do be really awesome as Dwayne.
All right, so Steven going with Henry Czerny, yeah, from Mission Impossible and a bunch of other things. Yeah, Ready or Not, the horror movie I rewatched. Forgot he was in that. He's the head of the household in that movie. But all right, yeah, and of course I got to stick with my '70s theme here. But I'm going with a guy who played an asshole as well in like everything he was ever in, '70s or '80s, and he's a very, very recognizable asshole. He's instantly hateable, and he can look like a buffoon because he's done comedies as well where he gets kind of one-upped and looks like a buffoon. And I went with John Vernon. I think John Vernon from Animal House, he's in Killer Clowns from Outer Space. He's the asshole sheriff in that movie. He's even in Ernest Goes to Camp. He's the bad guy in that movie. But if you remember him in Animal House, it's time for somebody to lay their foot down, and that foot is me. He could just be. He's got that commanding voice. You little asshole, you little shit. He's great, and you could definitely buy him as this like dickhead, just chief, police guy trying to take him. But again, like Paul Gleason, he can look like a buffoon, and I think it could work. And he could, play that kind of shame, as he does in his different roles, as he gets one upped in a lot of those movies. So I think it works. So he could be that kind of sub villain that really stands out and be that asshole. So again, I think it's important to cast a character actor here, and so I went with another asshole character actor, but a very prominent one, and John Vernon. So there you go, Jordan.
Yeah, so I went with one that damn near looks exactly like the actor Gleason.
Paul Gleason.
Paul Gleason. Yeah. But I went with one that I think can really like play that kind of real tough kind of asshole guy that thinks he's in charge of stuff, but really he's not really so much in charge necessarily, even though he is. But I went with Fred Ward. From like Tremors and like The Right Stuff, and like he just kind of just like to me just embodies what that character is. I mean, throw a little bit of an accent, but I think that it still works. It might even improve the character a little bit, make him just a little more fun and interesting. But yeah, I think Fred Ward could pull it off for sure. So yeah. That's my pick.
Okay. All right. So Jordan goes with Fred Ward on this one. All right. Wolf, round this out.
So this is the hardest one for me to pick from. And like, I'm not even super confident in my pick because nobody can beat Paul Gleason. Like, he is like the definitive 80s slug asshole that you just want to punch in the face. Like, nobody can beat him. So I was like, dang, this is hard. But I went with a 80s era another character actor, Kurtwood Smith. I feel like he's somebody who can play a lot of like assholes. We've seen him play a lot of these kind of characters that are just full of themselves, or kind of like in Dead Poet Society, he plays this very egotistical kind of father, and who's like very stern and kind of full of himself. You see him play a really bad part in RoboCop. Like, yeah, he's really really good at playing these like these just mean, just kind of slimy characters you just love to hate. So because of that, I'm going 80s Kurtwood Smith. I feel like he would embody this part really well.
All right, so going around the horn and recapping real quick for Dwayne Robinson, Paul Gleason's role. Stephen picked Henry Czerny. I went with the 70s era, John Vernon. Jordan goes with Fred Ward, and Wolf goes with Kurtwood Smith, circa 80s. And so that's why I pulled RoboCop, because he's 87. So
yeah.
All right, so there you go. All right, but Stephen, you have the honors of the ranking first.
Man, these 70s parts are hard because and I looked at his filmography. He's actually done a ton of voice work.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never seen Animal House. But so just because of my unfamiliarity with him, I got him at number 3.
I thought you would know these 70s movies, Steven. What's going on? Do you only have 80s and beyond?
I actually haven't watched a whole lot of 70s. I don't know why you thought I did.
I just thought you had. I don't know. So,
but 3, 2. I went with Fred Ward. He's a great actor. Most of the parts that I've seen him in, though, he's very likable. This part is not so likable, but I can still see him do it. But number 1, Kurtwood Smith. I mean,
I'm a dumbass, right?
I mean, in that 70s show, he's a likable asshole. But and then he plays he's played a ton of villains. But yeah, he could definitely be great in this part for sure.
All right, so there's your ranking for that. My third, I'm gonna have to go with Czerny. I don't know much outside of Mission Impossible and Ready or Not. I just haven't seen a lot of his thing. He seems like more like he'd be like a corporate asshole rather than like a cop to me. I don't know if he quite fits that like gruff cop guy. Like I just see him as more of like an administrator sort of a dude. Because in Mission Impossible he's like, the head guy, not so much the guy on the ground floor.
You've seen Clear and Present Danger, right? I mean, it's the same kind of part.
It's been forever.
It's kind of the same kind of part, though. So,
yeah.
So what you would say would still.
Kurtwood Smith is a good pick. I could see him being that, and I like him in RoboCop and whatnot. I haven't seen a lot outside of RoboCop and like that 70s show, but I like him what I see. But Jordan speak my language. Fred Ward, he knows so much Trevor Smith, and Fred Ward has played detectives and cops and other stuff in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like he could play that gruff guy on the ground level, and he's got that attitude, and you can see him being like that guy who's been around for 25 years on the force, and it could be that asshole. Like he's played assholes in movies too. So I mean, look at even Road Trip. Remember Road Trip? He's the dad, like chasing him throughout the movie and going around, run that credit card again, shit like that. So he's
in a movie.
It's
called Miami Blues with Alec Baldwin, where he's a cop in that one too. So
all right. But Jordan, what you got?
Yeah, so for John Vernon in Killer Clowns from Outer Space, like is he the cop that like gets the phone call and like doesn't believe the chick like that?
And he's the guy they turn into a ventriloquist. Yeah, he's the dickhead sheriff running around that movie.
So I do know for a few things, but even so, I'm just not that familiar with him. So I just gotta put him at number 3. But and then for number 2, I have Henry Czerny, just because like I really like him though. Like even though I don't really know from a whole lot other than Mission Impossible, he's like one of my favorite people in all of Mission Impossible. He's like really good, and I'd love to see him in a role like that. So I was gonna maybe have him for number 1, but then we got Kurtwood Smith, and that is a great pick because he has played cops before, but he's played villains. He's played all kinds of things. He's played played that like Dead Poet Society, like you mentioned. He was in Rambo 3, and of course RoboCop is like that's a big one that he's famous for. So yeah, I'll say Kurtwood Smith.
And it's not me appearing in the Movie Hero Network without me mentioning that Kurtwood Smith was also in 24.
Of course.
Oh yeah, certainly. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I figured you go with all 24 actors, Steven. You know,
yeah,
right. I mean, not to spoil anything, but you don't have Kiefer Sutherland anywhere on here. That's
you could
disappointing.
Do it.
You know,
Kiefer Sutherland is John McClane. Come on.
Oh man, that could be actually good.
Yeah, that could have actually been pretty good.
Dang, I should have picked him.
Wolf, what you got?
So I'm gonna go with number 3 as Fred Ward, only because I'm looking at his filmography and like I've seen him in some stuff like True Detective and a few other things, but like I'm not like super duper familiar with his work. I need to see some more stuff of his just to kind of remember him in those movies. But then number 2, I'm going with Henry Czerny, just because I'm also need to see more stuff with him. I've seen him in like in Scream. He was in Scream 6. He played the psychiatrist in that. He was in Ready or Not, and then he also just in the Mission Impossible movies. And yeah, in Mission Impossible movies, he kind of plays that kind of asshole part really well. So I would go with him at number 2, and then yeah, John Vernon. That's an inspired choice. When I was going through 80s actors, you brought it up, and I was like, oh my god, why didn't I think of John Vernon too? Like that's a really good pick in my mind, like because he's also would count for 80s too. So, so yeah. I was thinking that at one point. I was like, man, that would have also been one to consider. So, yeah, I'm gonna go John Vernon at number 1.
Yeah, no, if you see like demo reels of stuff of him, he's great. Yeah, he's always an asshole. And he always plays an asshole. He's just like Paul Gleason. Always plays a dick. So yeah, I don't think he's ever played a sympathetic character ever. But yeah, we got a few in the comments. Carol, just referencing my John Vernon, Mr. Butarski 0.0. That's good. Of course, somebody throwing out Cranston. Cranston, would always be a solid pick. Of course, he gets casted a lot. Chris Cooper. So yeah, we got a couple picks in there. But yeah, it'll be 5 apiece for Czerny and Vernon, 6 for Ward, and Kurtwood Smith. The 80s era Kurtwood Smith takes that one. So there you go. Well, all right. So again, nobody's running away with this one. It's kind of all over the place. So
yeah,
I like it. We got a very diverse cast. So you saw a little bit of him in that clip I just played. So we're of course going to talk about Sergeant Al Powell. We're going to talk about Reginald VelJohnson as Sergeant Al Powell, the other guy on the radio, and talking to John McClane the whole time. So let's get just a really quick. We had some of them in that clip, so I just got another short one just to complement that. So let's look at Al. Had heel authority like early 2010s Triple H for the Dwayne Robinson part. Yeah, I like that. All right, so
what do you call him, Roy? In that? Is that like a code name?
No, he calls him Roy Rogers the whole movie because he says, "Call me Roy. Call me Roy Rogers." He says Cowboy. He's calling him Cowboy through the whole movie. So he says, "What can I call you?" He says, "Call me Roy." So yeah, so he only knows him as Roy for most of the movie until he finds out who he is at the end. So, but yeah, so yeah, it's Roy and Al. But yeah, so yeah, we're talking about Reginald VelJohnson as Al Powell. So yeah, he was on the radio with John most of the movie. So yeah, I guess we're kicking off with me, right? Yeah. So all right, back on to me. Yeah, I think you need a guy again with a really great voice because a lot of this is voice, over the radio and back and forth with that. You need a guy who can stand up to guys like Paul Gleason and kind of take command of the situation, but who can also, have a little bit of comedic stuff here and there. And he's been in comedies as well. If you look at his filmography, I went the 70s era. James Earl Jones. I think a 70s James Earl Jones would be a lot of fun in this. A younger James Earl Jones would still have the voice. He could still be a kind of lovable dude. Again, this is pre like Field of Dreams, pre Darth Vader, all that kind of stuff, but still have that voice. He was an Oscar nominated actor in the 70s, so he knows his stuff, but a little lesser known. And I think that's important for this one because Reginald VelJohnson was not as well known at the time. But yeah, I mean, you could put him up against any actor that comes into it, and he could just deal back and forth with them. So, but I think the voice is really important as well. You need that radio voice. So, yeah, 70s era, early James Earl Jones is my pick for Al. So, Jordan.
Yeah, so I was looking in the chat. One of my picks, I almost went with with Terry Crews, but it's kind of like going from like a slightly like chubby guy to like a super buff guy. I'm kind of like,
yeah.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
so yeah, but yeah, for mine. So I think for this character of Al Powell, you really need someone who can just have some like quiet heroicism. Like he's not like a real outspoken kind of guy. He's just kind of quiet, but he's on the radio. He's helping him out, and he has a little bit of charisma, but like he's just the guy just kind of guiding him through. But like I think that like he doesn't really want to piss off his sergeant, but he does kind of want to stand up to him, kind of. So there's a guy that I think that fits that's had a lot of roles like that. I went with Paul Walter Hauser. So actually, Ray swapped him. I went white to swap him, but I think though, like you throw the mustache on him, you do like the Richard Jewell. I think that's a really good comparison. And then he's done like even like some henchman stuff that I think can translate into police officer, like the Cruella when he's like the henchman guy, even like the Cobra Kai when he's being that kind of crazy. I forget what they call his character in it, but and then on I, Tonya, like that kind of stuff. Like I think that he just really fits the role, even a little bit into Five Bloods. I know he's only in it for briefly, but yeah, I think Paul Walter Hauser could really fit that kind of just quiet heroicism though. Like he's gonna like save the day at the end, but you're not sure though. So yeah.
All right, so Jordan going with Paul Walter Hauser. Wolf, what you got?
Well, you're race swapping. I'll buff swap because I don't care about if I cast someone who's a little bit more on the buff side, as long as they're more, as long as they match the personality and the persona. And so I'm going with somebody who I don't. When I'm thinking of Al Powell, I don't want to cast a huge star for the 80s. Like, yeah, he was in a big 80s movie, but he really wasn't a big star. Even in this big 80s movie, he was still kind of the smaller character. I went with an 80s Ernie Hudson. I think that Ernie Hudson could really fit this role well. He's got the charm. He's got the charisma. He can crack the jokes when he needs to. I could see him, singing the Christmas Carol to his car kind of deal. And then as it goes in there, the gunfire starts and all that stuff. I could see him just doing all those antics. He has that really good voice, like, saying like, "Hey man, don't talk like that. You're going to get through this, all right?" And like giving the advice to John McClane up in the tower. I could really see that working well because he's got that the voice for it. I think that he's got a quietness to him as well that works really well for the kind of part. So to me, I just think Ernie Hudson all around is really good. We've even seen him play cops as well too, so he's good at playing those kind of roles. He's got familiarity with those. So yeah, I'm gonna say an 80s era Ernie Hudson is my pick for Al Powell.
80s Ernie Hudson. All right, Steven, round us out for this round.
So yeah, I also went with someone who's not overweight, but he could still probably put on a few pounds. I mean, the only thing in the movie that would at all make his weight matter is the fact that he likes his Twinkies.
Hey, those are for his pregnant wife.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I went with John David Washington. I mean, what people forget too is the whole arc that Al goes throughout the whole movie because of this traumatic event that he went through. That now he couldn't pick up, his gun, and I could really, picture John David Washington play that part especially well, which leads to him being forced at the end of the movie to pick up his gun and shoot Carl at the end. So yeah, I went with John David Washington.
All right, so Denzel's kid, John David Washington, for Steven. So again, just running all the picks back real quick. So I've got a 70s era James Earl Jones. Jordan has Paul Walter Hauser. Wolf's got 80s Ernie Hudson, and John David Washington for Steven. So all right, so I guess we'll start with me. I'm going to go with John David Washington, my third. He's yet to impress me in a movie. I think he's kind of bland in Tenet and was it the creator? I think he's kind of the least interesting character in most of those movies.
Yeah.
I just don't think he has a lot of charisma.
What about Black Klansman?
He's fine, but I think everybody else around him stands out.
especially when you know
even Topher
goat.
Grace and Adam Driver stand out more in Black Klansman to me. Like I think he just is kind of blah. He's yet to really impress me especially as Denzel's kid. I just don't think even he has a 20th of the charisma that Denzel has. So he's yet to impress me. I don't know if he's got it. We'll see. Paul Walter Hauser would be my number 2. I do like it, and he could be that kind of everyman dude. But I like Ernie Hudson. I like him a lot. I want to see him in more stuff, and every time I see him, I really like him, especially in the smaller roles. Even in Airheads, I think he plays like the cop, like running around on the ground floor of Airheads. And he's got a good voice, and he is an everyman in Ghostbusters. Like he's that kind of just every guy. He's not like the superhero, cop or anything like that. He's just like just sort of that guy. So I like Ernie Hudson a lot. Yeah, I'll go with him. So Jordan.
And I was just gonna say that somebody brought up James Avery, the dad from the Fresh Prince. I almost went with him. It's a little too on the nose for me. Like it's just like he looks exactly like.
Especially there's a famous blooper where James Avery showed up on the set of Family Matters and like walked in the door, and then Reginald VelJohnson like hugged.
Oh, really?
Like, there's a clip of that. Yeah. or somebody said like Uncle Carl. Like I think Richie was like, Uncle Carl, you remind me of the uncle of Fresh Prince, and then he like walked in the door.
Oh, right. Yeah, But for me, my number 3, I just have James Earl Jones, just because I think I don't know, he's just a little too commanding. Like I don't know, he was just born with a voice that's both a blessing and a curse because it just commands everything that he does. I feel like, but and then for my number 2, I have John David Washington. I could see it. I think that I mean, doesn't have a ton of charisma, but he has the acting chops down and I think that he could pull it off. I think that it could work. But my number 1's got to be Ernie Hudson. I really like Ernie Hudson. I think that he's a great choice, and I could see him just being that cop, because he's played cops and and he's had roles like that, and I think that like he could do it, and also he's very likable too. So and I think you got to have a likable character. So
All right, Wolf.
Yeah, number 3, I'm also going with John David Washington. Denzel Washington is arguably my favorite actor of all time. It goes back and forth between him and like Joaquin Phoenix, but like he's definitely up there for me. And the thing is like his son, I like him in Black Klansman, but everything else, it's like I've seen him in, hasn't really impressed me a lot. Like The Piano Lesson on Netflix, incredibly acted movie from like Samuel L. Jackson and Daniel Deadwyler and all those people. But like John David Washington is like trying to put on this accent. He's like, "Hey, now listen here, okay? I'm taking that piano," and he's like doing an accent like that. And I was like, I just don't buy you as this like country boy. Like, I'm sorry, like this is fun. But all the other performances are great. So that's why I'm gonna go with John David Washington, number 3. Number 2, I'm going James Earl Jones. He's gonna just be like, "No, John, I am your father." Like I can just see him being like very, very, almost like sounding almost threatening. It'd be like, "Oh shoot, really?" Kind of scary. But then my number 1, even though it is a race swap, I think Paul Walter Hauser. Definitely, I could see him kind of working. He's got that charisma. He's got that charm. He's got the kind of, like you said, the quietness to him. I think he's somebody who could play that part pretty well. So, Paul Walter Hauser.
All right, Steven.
At number 3, the only reason why I have Paul Walter Hauser at number 3 is I'm not as familiar with him as the other 2, even though I do think he was great in Richard Jewell. And I think there might be, I mean, that's top 5 Clint Eastwood directed movies for me. I thought Richard Jewell was great. Number 2, I have James Earl Jones. It's really close for between number 2 and number 1 for me, but I have James Earl Jones at number 2. I think a lot of people, obviously, when they think of James Earl Jones, they think of Star Wars and Lion King. But I also loved him in the Jack Ryan movies, and I think he would be great as Al. But yeah, I have Ernie Hudson at number one. I mean, yeah, I love that pick. I think the movie that I think of the most that makes me think, yeah, he would be great Al. It was him and The Crow.
Yeah,
The Crow.
The Crows.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I just wanted. Barber did drop his wrestler pick, Big E, also from the New Day, rounding out the New Day. So yeah, we had a couple of people. Some people say Forrest Whitaker, from the '90s. That could
Forrest
possibly
Whitaker
work.
is a great choice.
Kind of thought about him a little. Yeah,
Forrest Whitaker, Brian Tyree Henry. Yeah, that's not a bad pick. He's a good actor. He's breaking out a lot lately. So yeah, a couple of picks in there. But yeah, so we got John David Washington 4, James Earl Jones 5, Paul Walter Hauser 6, and Ernie Hudson, 80s era Ernie Hudson takes this one. So there you go.
I was so fixated on doing modern actors that I don't know why I wouldn't have thought of someone like Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah,
he would be a great choice.
Yeah, all right. So we are getting to the two lead roles here. We are getting to the meat and potatoes here. So it is time for Hans Gruber, of course, perfectly played by Alan Rickman. We would never have it any other way. He's the man, one of the great villains of all time. So this is super difficult. Both these top roles because we just almost couldn't see anybody but Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman playing these parts. But we're gonna do our best. So we've seen a little bit of Rickman, here and there in those, some of these clips. So let's get a little bit more of him, sort of the blanks questions, if you will. He's great.
Alan Rickman, he's so good. You just think of the different roles that he's done. I mean, going from that to Professor Snape but then going and being in Sense and Sensibility or Dogma, just so many diverse kind of roles.
I always love him as Sheriff of Nottingham and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Yeah. He does that too, so yeah.
I mean, and we remind everybody this was his debut, his first movie, and he's incredible.
His first movie.
Yeah, his first movie.
His first movie. Wow.
If you didn't know this, this was literally his big screen debut. He was a theater actor, and he had never even done a movie. This is his first movie, and he's great. So maybe the greatest acting debut of all time, maybe arguably. So
that's why classically trained actors are some of the best.
Oh yeah. I mean, Denzel is the same way. There's so many. Well, which interesting fact. Apparently, when he gets dropped from the tower, and something you see his face looks like he literally shit himself, and apparently he did because they were saying, okay, we're gonna drop you on the count of 3, and they're like 1 or whatever, something like that. Just dropped him all of a sudden, he just did not expect it whatsoever, without even they didn't even give him the countdown. They just decided to just drop him, and he was like, holy shit. That kind of thing. So.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into it, and let's see. I mean, we can never replace Alan Rickman. Rest in peace. I mean, one of the greats of all time. But we're going to see what we can come up with here. So, Jordan, you got to kick us off on this one. It's tricky, but let's see what you got.
Yeah, and someone just put a good one in the chat of Billy Bob Thornton, but because he's really good in Fargo, playing a ruthless kind of guy. But I went with one that definitely has the accent down, and I think that he can play a villain super well, and he's also played good. He's played bad. I went with Benedict Cumberbatch from mine. So, and I think that he could really play just a really kind of scumbaggy guy, and even in some of the roles where you think that he might be a good guy, he's always towing the line. Like Doctor Strange, you can't tell me that's a total hero. He's an asshole, and he's an asshole to like most of the people he interacts with and stuff. And then even in the Sherlock Holmes, he's kind of an asshole too, but he's kind of a good guy. But just has that powerful commanding voice that just commands the screen. And I think that I could see him being the kind of slimy kind of just really I don't know, just evil dude. And so Benedict Cumberbatch.
Okay, so Jordan picks Benedict Cumberbatch for his spot. Wolf, what you got?
It was hard to pick, but I wanted somebody who not only is a great character actor like Alan Rickman, but also a great chameleon as well. like Alan Rickman, where you just slide him into any part and he could play it expertly. And so I went with somebody who has that kind of demeanor, that person you don't want to fuck with kind of demeanor. And so I went with an 80s Rutger Hauer is what I went with. And to me, he just really fits this part. I could see him having the suaveness of a Hans Gruber, because that's one thing about Hans Gruber is he's got like a smoothness to him. And if you've seen Rutger Hauer in any of his kind of movies that he has been in, he always kind of has that kind of personality to him. Plus, like, he's played really great villains, whether it's in Blade Runner or in some of the other movies that he's been in. He played some really good villains. So I just could really see him pulling this off. He could do the subtle moments really well. He could do the, the more bombastic part of where he's like having to just like change his voice up all of a sudden. I could see him pulling that off and doing stuff like that. Like, because he can be showy, he can be subtle, he can do a mixture of all sorts of things. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Rutger Hauer.
All right, so 80s era Rutger Hauer.
And also, you want to find someone who can say the ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen,
ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Steven.
So I went with, I guess he's someone that people choose a lot. I think I chose him for something in the previous one that I was in too, but I went with Adam Driver.
I think he's been cast in almost every episode we've done.
I chose him because he looks good in a suit. And
he does look good in a suit. Look at that. That's a hell of a suit. Man, he
wears a tailored suit.
Yeah, that is a custom-made suit. Yeah.
And I know a lot of people aren't a fan of the Star Wars prequels, but I think he was a great bad guy in The Last Jedi. So much so that I was really disappointed in Rise of Skywalker when they did the whole, redemption.
When they turned babyface.
I know.
Yeah.
There's so much to be disappointed with in that movie.
I mean, I don't dislike that movie as much as most people, but I don't like that they brought Palpatine back and did the whole cliched redemption arc for him, even though it did lead to the best scene in the movie. But yeah, I think Adam Driver is a great villain, and he's very suave looking, and I think he's got the voice too.
All right, so Steven goes with Adam Driver, who does get cast a lot on here, but for good reason. He's a good reason. Yeah. All right. So I have to go old school for my pick, and I went with the guy who actually played villains a lot more than you might think. And in his career was cut short in the '80s when he passed away, but he has some incredibly memorable roles that I'll point out here in a second. I went with '70s era Robert Shaw. I think Robert Shaw, I think most people know him as Clint from Jaws, but right there, he was in From Russia with Love. He was in The Sting, if you remember The Sting. He's the very kind of quiet, sophisticated villain in The Sting. The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 with him and Walter Matthau, taking the hostages on the actual subway car in the original Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. And that's a lot of back and forth on the radio and things as well, talking back and forth with Walter Matthau. So he could easily do that. He's a British actor, so if you don't know, he was actually British in the first place, so everything he does in all his different accents, he's a very versatile and again a chameleon. He doesn't look the same as he does in Sting, as he does in Jaws, as he does in Pelham 1, 2, 3, as he does in From Russia with Love. And I think he's always kind of played these great different roles and always managed to stand out. So just an actor that I think doesn't get enough credit for being really, really great in everything he does. Think about the monologues he does in his movies. Like he's incredible. So I'm going to go with a 70s era Robert Shaw. So that's my pick. All right. So I like all these picks a lot. So this is going to be tricky. And obviously with Hans, all these are great. So my rankings when we get there are not going to be indicative of the pick. I think all these picks are excellent. So it's just going to be a nitpicky thing. So so I guess we'll go Jordan. You got to go first on this one. This is going to be tough.
Yeah, it's tough. But I thought maybe someone was gonna pick him, like maybe Wolf or something, but Charles Dance, I thought that could be a good one. So but I like that one, Jonathan. But I'm a douchey ponytail guy. Yeah, this one's tough. But for my number 3, I have Robert Shaw, just because I am not as familiar with everything that he's done. I know him from Jaws for sure. That's like the main thing that I know him from. But yeah, just and probably the Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3. I mean, yeah, he's pretty good. But I just don't see him in that like Hans Gruber kind of role. But for number 2, I have Rutger Hauer. I think he's a really good pick, especially from Blade Runner. I think that's one of the things that like really stands out for me. But yeah, I mean, we pick Adam Driver a lot, but for good reason, because he's really great and he can do like so many different roles, and I think he'd be a great one and just be the real menacing guy. Like I just can really see that. So yeah, Adam Driver for number 1.
So Jacob settling on Gunther, and current Gunther on the mic is really good. I like him a lot. So, yeah. Wolf, what you got?
Yeah, number 3. I think I'm gonna. Oh shoot, this is tough. This is honestly the hardest one because every single one of these are like excellent. This is really tough. Shoot. Number 3. I think I'm gonna go with Adam Driver, only because I don't feel like his look. I mean, he's perfect choice. Like I'm not knocking any of these choices. I'm just trying to play like devil's advocate. But like I just feel like he's doesn't have that Hans Gruber, like I've been in this shit for a while, you know. I have this kind of experience to me. Like I just don't feel that kind of feel to him. So that's why he's number 3. Number 2, I have Robert Shaw just because I'm like I think I need to see a little bit more from Robert Shaw, especially in some more of his villainous stuff. I've only seen him like in James Bond, I think, as villains that he played in that. But everything else, I think need to see a little bit more. And then at number 1, I have Benedict Cumberbatch. I just feel like Benedict Cumberbatch, he's got the voice for it, you know, the British kind of voice that he could use. He's got the personality, the menace, like the menaceness and scariness of him. So I definitely could see Benedict Cumberbatch really pulling off this role well. So,
all right.
Also, I was just gonna. I forgot to mention. Say what you want about the movie, but he did a pretty good villain in Star Trek Into Darkness. I mean, he wasn't like the character was just done really poorly, but him as a villain, I think, was pretty good still. So.
Steven, what'd you get for your rankings?
I love Robert Shaw in Jaws. That's kind of like my extent of what I've seen.
See, I know. I got the wrong panel. I need like people who know 70s. Yeah, because Shaw's great.
Yeah. But I love him in Jaws.
Here.
No.
Number 2, I have Rutger Hauer. You know, I haven't seen that much with him as well, but I do like him in Blade Runner and in Batman Begins. And he was a good villain in an episode of Alias.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I have Benedict Cumberbatch at number 1. I think that's a great choice. Even though, okay, he is good in Star Trek Into Darkness, as long as you don't count him as Khan.
Just count him as like John, whatever his name was supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Carol. Carol giving me a little love for. He would have put him at number 1. Thank you, Carol. Appreciate that. Somebody who knows his filmography. So mine, I'm gonna go. Again, all 3 of these are great. So this is not like indicative of my point, but I like all these picks a lot, and I think they would all bring something cool. I'll just go Hauer only because I don't love Blade Runner, just me personally, but I think he's good in it. But I like The Hitcher. He's really creepy in The Hitcher, and I like him.
Yeah.
So, you're speaking my horror language with that, so I like it. I'll go with Cumberbatch next because I think he's really good as well, and yeah, he's got that voice and that presence, so I dig it. But yeah, I'm just a massive Adam Driver fan, and I disagree with the season thing. He's the same age Alan Rickman was when he did Die Hard right now.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, Rickman was like 42. He's like 41 right now, so he's the same age. So I think he can't play a seasoned guy. If you saw Ferrari, like that movie's not great, but he plays older Ferrari. Like in that movie, I think he can play older. And, you could age him up a little bit, and I think he's totally fine. So yeah, I'll go Driver for number one. I love him, and I just think he's such a chameleon. So he's great. All right, so we got Shaw with 4, Howell with 5. We got Driver with 7, and just squeaking out Cumberbatch with 8. So Cumberbatch. All right. So we got Jordan got another one with that. And again, we're fairly even here, so it's all over the place.
Yeah.
All right. So nobody's running away with it tonight. So all right.
Which I almost went with. I was gonna say that. I almost picked Mads Mikkelsen. I think that could have been a good one too.
Oh,
yeah.
That work. Yeah. All right. So let's get to the man himself. Let's get to John McClane, Bruce Willis. This is the great everyman hero that we know and love. So again, we've seen him a little bit here and there, on the radio and whatnot. So come on, I got to play it. Let's play the scene out and get to the line. Let's do it. We had to. We couldn't play this episode without getting to the line. We had to. Yeah. Come on. Yippee-ki-yay.
Yeah.
Right,
we gotta have it. Yeah.
We had to have it. So, all right. So, yeah, we of course, again, Bruce Willis as John McClane. We would never replace him. He's amazing. He's so great. He's perfect in this movie. He's awesome. But we're going to do our best and see what we can come up with. So, Wolf, I believe it's on you to kick us off for this one.
All right. So, for 80s John McClane, I'm going with somebody who has that charisma, who would do that smile that Bruce Willis does and all that kind of stuff. I'm going with a Jack Burton here, and that is a 80s Kurt Russell. I could see an 80s Kurt Russell really pulling this off. If you get your Escape from New York, Escape from LA, Kurt Russell, you're Big Trouble in Little China, Kurt Russell. You got that kind of a Kurt Russell who could be like, oh, let's go to the party, let's have a town, it's going to be nice. I could see him being that kind of fun, welcome to the party, pal, kind of person, just in the thing, that welcome to the party, pal is a lot like when the thing roars, he's like, yeah, well, fuck you too, and throwing that thing. I could see him doing that kind of a role here. And also he's just has played a lot of really great action stars and action heroes, and we've seen him in action, and he's really good at it. So I think he's got the badassness. I think he's got the charm. I think he's got the charisma. I just all around think that he would be like the perfect choice for an 80s John McClane. So,
all right. So Wolf going with 80s era Kurt Russell for his pick. Steven.
Did this stream just get copyright?
Oh, God damn it. Of course it did. Right on the last one. Yeah.
People are saying on the chat that the stream has gone.
Yeah. Damn it.
Oh, dang.
Of course. Yeah. On the last one, I played one scene and it killed us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, one of them might have been a little long, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll fix it afterwards.
Yeah.
So for John McClane, I was thinking of someone who can do, the smart aleck.
Because it's back.
Oh, it is back.
What Jacob Barber said.
Weird.
I don't know.
Weird.
Yeah.
Maybe YouTube thought again. It was the same thing where YouTube thought we're playing the whole. I'm not playing the whole movie. I'm just playing one scene.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here playing the
It
movie.
was though
Yeah.
sad on the lengthy side.
Yeah, but I had to get the context of the scene. Like you can't just play the one line. You gotta get a little bit of real Willis in there. So yeah, weird. All right. Here we go.
Anyways.
Yeah. So I was trying to come up with someone who can do the wisecracks, but also play sincere really well. And there were a few names I thought of, but since I was going with more modern, he was mentioned earlier. Wolfman actually mentioned him as a possible choice for Alice, but I chose him for John McClane. I went with Glenn Powell.
All right.
Just because I think the movie that I've seen him. I haven't seen Hitman yet, but I've seen him in Top Gun Maverick, which honestly, even though he's fine in that movie, that didn't really impress me that much. But the movie that did sell me on him, I think he's really good in Twisters, and that when we meet him in Twisters, he comes off as arrogant and but then when you get to know his character more, he's a lot more likable, and I think Glenn Powell's actually really good in that, and yeah, that's the movie that actually sold me on him. So I went with Glenn Powell.
So Steven goes with Glenn Powell. All right. So sticking with my 70s theme, I got a guy who's played a lot of cops. Actually, he's played cowboys, which would be irony, if you drop the yippee-ki-yay. He's played everyman. He's played, everyman characters as well. I mean, you go with a 70s era Clint Eastwood, and I think 70s era Clint Eastwood will be a ton of fun and really good because, again, he can play that low-key, just sort of regular guy, sort of New York cop. He plays a regular guy in like Every Which Way But Loose and Escape from Alcatraz. He's not like, this super badass, but he can turn on that badassness when he needs to. Obviously, if you look at the Dirty Harry films, if you look at, the Dollars trilogy and whatnot, so he knows how to wield a gun. And again, him saying yippee-ki-yay would be a lot of fun. Given the fact that he's mostly known for playing cowboys, he could do the fights, he could do the action when he needs to do the action. But he's also a really good just dramatic actor. He could have those smaller moments just on the radio. He's got a great voice to go back and forth with that. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker! You kind of see it. So I think 70s era Clint Eastwood would be kind of perfect for this because he's not a super badass, but he can turn it on when he needs to. So Clint Eastwood's my pick. So there you go. All right, Jordan.
So my pick is, I'm going to say it. It is Bruce Willis. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. No, because he's the only guy that can do this. I mean, this one had for me it was probably the most difficult one because I just think that he's so perfect in it. It's just like what do you choose? But I want the guy who has a lot of charisma. He's done a crap ton of action movies, just action movie after action movie, and he's really, really good in it. And that's Carl Urban. So, and so from roles, he's done everything like The Boys, of course, he's great in that, and then Dread is a big one, and then Lord of the Rings, he's great in that. Thor Ragnarok, he's in there. Doom. I mean, you can just go through his whole filmography, and it's mostly all action. He even has a small little role in The Bourne Supremacy where he's fighting Jason Bourne, and I just think that, or Pathfinder, that's another one. Just really good stuff. But then he's done some more kind of a dramatic. He's done Pete's Dragon. He's done a few of the roles that are just kind of more subdued. So he's done it before, but I will say Carl Urban. So yeah.
All right. So Barbara's Joe Hendry.
No. I believe in Joe Hendry.
John Moxley.
There you go. John Moxley's a little better.
All right. Yeah, a little more gruff. I think John Moxley. Yeah, Joe Hendry's too pretty. All right. So running down the picks. Wolf goes with 80s era kind of prime Kurt Russell. Steven going with Glenn Powell. I went with 70s era Clint Eastwood, and Jordan going with Carl Urban. So those are your picks on the table for John McClane. All right, Wolf, kick us off.
Well, speaking of too pretty, I definitely think Glenn Powell might be a little too pretty for John McClane. I feel like he's all the ladies would be watching it and being like, "Oh my God, when is he going to take his shirt off in this movie? When is he actually going to take his shirt off?" And it would just be that kind of thing, and they wouldn't focus on him being a badass. They would just focus on that. So I do feel a little bit like he's a little bit.
It's like when they wanted to cast, the usual suspects when they made Die Hard, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone. It's you don't need the super Terminator badass. That's not what the role is. No. That's not the
Bruce
point.
Willis was still pretty jacked in that movie, though.
Well, I think he's cut, but he's not jacked.
Yeah, right.
He's just a dude who's in shape. but he's not he's not a jacked up bodybuilder. You know what I mean? Like,
No, no, he's definitely not as bulky as
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing veins popping out or anything.
Or even
yeah.
But so Glenn Powell would be my number 3. My number 2 is Carl Urban. I think that he's really good, but I see him. I don't know. I like it is a good pick. I just don't see him as like a everyday man. I see him kind of more as like he's good. He'll be good on like the arrogant side though of like, of John McClane's kind of personality. But my number 1, I'm going with the 70s era Clint Eastwood. I think that's a really solid choice. I think he's got the gruffness, he's got the toughness, and I could see him really pulling it off.
All right, Steven?
Man, this actually might be the hardest one.
Yeah.
Okay. At number 3, I went with Clint Eastwood. I love Clint Eastwood, and I think he would be a solid choice. The other 2 are just, to me, just slightly, and I almost went with Carl Urban at number 1, because I think Carl Urban is a great choice. But I went with Kurt Russell at number 1. I think Kurt Russell is kind of a cut of, in a lot of ways, a cut of from the same cloth as Bruce Willis. When the wisecracks and but also he can bring a lot of heart to the part as well.
Powell. To me, it's a different energy, and I've seen more of him. I'm becoming more of a fan. Hitman, actually, that Netflix movie is really good this year. If you haven't seen it, he's very good. He's very chameleon in that. So I'm getting more and more impressed with him. My test for me, Steven, for whether he could do a role like this is when they do this Running Man remake, and I think he might be good for that because the original source material, it's not a guy like Arnie. It's more of like kind of an everyman guy. If you can pull that off, if that had been out right now, I would maybe roll with you, but I haven't seen that side of it yet. So that'll be my test. I'll go Urban number 2. I like Urban a lot. I like Dredd. I love Dredd. So he's got the great voice. He comes off as a little more almost arrogant a little bit or something like that. Just a tinge of that. But again, these are all decent picks. Man. Kurt Russell is such like an everyman dude, like so likable, but he could also play kind of depressed, going through a divorce and but do the comedic lines. He has the delivery. I love Kurt Russell so much, like just about everything he does. So he's one of my guys. I think I even put him. We did our favorite actors, Jordan. If you remember that tournament fights we did, like we all picked like a 12 or what. I think he was on there. I love Kurt Russell.
Yeah,
so, I'll go with Kurt. Jordan.
Yeah, so I'm still not completely sold on Glenn Powell and like as being like an A-lister. They're really trying to push him as this A-list guy. But maybe the Running Man will be one of the tests. I don't know, but I have him for my number 3.
I'm interested in that because if you go back and read the original thing, he's more of like a tall, skinnier kind of guy, like the actual character that they casted Arnie because he was the hot action star. So like, I think if they stick more to the source material of Running Man, I think Powell could be good for that, and that we'll see. You know what I mean? If he can pull that off, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. But I did really like Hitman. That's my favorite thing he's done so far. So
he's really good in that movie.
Yeah, but and then probably my number 2 has got to be Clint Eastwood, just because I just see it like the voice. It just kind of throws me off slightly. Where he's like, are you gonna mess with me? Well, are you punk or whatever? Like I'm just waiting for him to like say those kind of like just these one-liners.
Who gives a shit about glass?
Yeah. Like he has the one-liners. He just delivers them more kind of like a gruff kind of like I don't know, rough and tumble kind of way. I don't know, but Kurt Russell is an inspired pick. That might be my favorite pick of the night. That one just is like spot on. It's just so good. Yeah. Like you think of like the Big Trouble in Little China. You had the picture there, but then I think Escape from New York. Snake Plissken. Like there's just a lot of characters that just really fit, and I think that he'd be great. Like if they would have cast him, like I'd probably still like Die Hard almost as much, but I mean maybe not quite. Like if if Die Hard's a 10 out of 10, then it would be like a 9 out of 10, I think, with him in it. So.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. That's
Yeah.
right.
That'd be awesome.
All right, so Wolf's pick, and I picked it because it was actually similar to the thing. Look at the poster for this.
Yeah,
And
right.
Yeah.
Get
Got
the tank top and the gun.
It's like Drew Casio.
Yeah, I don't know if that might actually be. Well, I mean, I can't say it's a nod to it because Big Trouble was 2 years before Die Hard, so maybe maybe Die Hard got it from them. I don't know. All right, so there you go. That's gonna wrap it up. So it's been a lengthy show, but a lot of fun one. So let's run down the picks of who we kind of officially have for our picks. So starting back with Carl, we've got 80s era Dolph Lundgren as Carl. Scrolling up, we got 70s era Donald Sutherland as Thornburg. Then moving up to Ellis, we've got just gotta pick him here. We got David Duchovny rounding out for Ellis. For Theo, we picked Keith David, 80s era Keith David. Argyle, we've got a little Chris Tucker action going on there. For Holly, we've got Meryl Streep, 70s era Meryl Streep for my pick with my 70s thing. For Dwayne Robinson, we got 80s era Kurtwood Smith. For Al Powell, we've got an 80s Ernie Hudson. For Hans Gruber, we've got a kind of current era Benedict Cumberbatch. And then rounding out, we got 80s era Kurt Russell. So Die Hard. So all over the place, but an interesting cast. I would watch that movie all day.
Yeah.
If we were somehow able to time travel it and put it all together, and mix it all up. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
It would have been funny if you could have pulled up the wrestling picks Jacob Barber had. So for our first one, we got Dolph Ziggler. Then we have The Miz. Then we have MJF. All of those.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, but also I think that the Acres of Movies might be smoking a little something for his John McClane because he had two picks. He had Woody Harrelson, which I don't know, but then he had what was it? Sean William Scott in there. I'm like, no.
That's
not at all
wrong. Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
That's wrong. Yeah.
No.
But it's fun to have you though. Those off the wall pictures to make us laugh, give us some entertainment. So
Sure.
All right, so that'll do it for tonight. That was a lot of fun, kind of trying to recast again a great movie. Again, a perfect movie. We cast all these kind of perfect movies that were great. We couldn't think of any others. Right. But make sure you watch Die Hard this Christmas season if you hadn't. I was lucky enough that my Regal played it for a week for Christmas last year, just a week straight, just normal show times, and so I finally got to see it in the theater. Nice. That was awesome. So yeah, I don't know if I haven't seen a lot of people do it, but if you ever get a chance to see it in the theater, especially
it played in the theater for my birthday last year as like a
it was the anniversary last year, so it made sense. It was the 35th anniversary, so I mean that made a lot of sense there. But we'll go around the horn and we'll get some plugs and we'll check out for the evening. So Steven, hit us with anything we can check you out on. What you got going on?
I'll be back on this channel on the 16th, I think it is, for is it 1997?
Yeah. 97 Ladder Series. Yeah.
All right, that all you got? That's it?
Yeah, that's
all right, sounds good. All right, cool. Wolf, what you got?
Well, I believe I'm also going to be on the 1997 Ladder Series because I was born that year. So I was like, I gotta be on my birth year at some point for sure. So looking forward to that. And then also, I'm going to be doing the coverage of the Golden Globe Awards this week on Wednesday, and we're going to be having Jonathan Caro joining us that day from the Seen and Heard MVP from last night, joining us on there to discuss the Golden Globe nominations. So that should be a lot of fun. And then on top of that, it'll be starting this weekend, but we are doing a show called Is It a Christmas Movie, where we're going to be tackling like different kind of Christmas adjacent movies and doing a debate show about them and seeing if it's a Christmas movie or not. And even though the debate is technically over, I thought it would be fitting to start with the one that is the most debated about and do Die Hard as the first episode. And then from there we'll do like Little Women, Batman Returns, other ones like that. So it should be really fun. You guys can
Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapons, because it's getting bang. Yeah, some other ones like that. So
Yes.
you guys gonna?
Don't worry, we will talk about that in just a second. I promise we're getting there. We're getting there. We'll show us this. We'll tell you just a second.
And then also, this December's monthly mistake is going to be Black Christmas 2019.
2019, the
really feminist awful one. So that should be fun to revisit.
Not the Jack Frost, the direct to video.
We did that.
We did them.
You did it?
The 2 years in a row. We did the first.
We did the first one and the sequel. Yeah, those got us pretty messed up. Yeah.
Oh my god, I didn't know there was a sequel to that.
Oh, there's a sequel. Yeah. It's on an island. It's on an island for some reason. Yeah.
Yeah, they decided to like take it to Hawaii, and he was still a snowman or whatever in Hawaii. It was so weird. It was really dumb.
Did it get cold in Hawaii?
I don't think so.
We knew they had a sequel to that movie.
Yeah. So that's everything I got coming up for December.
All right, Jordan.
Yeah, I was just looking to see if they were gonna play Die Hard anywhere, because for some reason I just haven't seen it that many times, and so I want to find a cool place to watch it, but I guess it'll be at home, so I'll watch it there. But I'm definitely going to watch it this year. They are showing for the umpteenth time. Every year they show Christmas Vacation. I've seen it in theaters like 4 times, I think, because they just always show it, and so I just go see it because But there's not too much. I won't plug a whole lot on here tonight, but just follow us over at the Movie Hero Network group on Facebook. You can keep up to date on everything that we're doing. If you have any projects you're working on, if you have a YouTube channel or anything movie or TV or pop culture related, go post over there to your heart's content, and we'll share it out. We'll get you some subscribers. We're just a big family over there, and we just wrapped up our big event of the year, the Seen and Heard Trivia Free for All that all these guys were a part of, and so go check that out. That's on the channel if you want a good 4-hour dose of trivia that came down to the wire. We went into sudden death overtime, so go check that out. That was a lot of fun. And then we just have a bunch of holiday mystery tournaments we've been doing. We have our part 3 going on tomorrow night, and then we'll have one going on Friday, and then the best movies of 1997 will be after that. We already talked about that. And to round out the year, we're going to be doing our most anticipated movies of 2025, and also right after Christmas will be our championship for that holiday mystery series. So I'll leave it at that. And I'll let Austin maybe talk about what we have coming up for Recast and all that stuff.
Yeah, so the next Recast, we're still tooling the date. We might have to redo the date here, but it might be sooner rather than later. So you might be getting another dose of Recast in about a week and a half. So we're going to be doing another Christmas classic with a great ensemble, Home Alone. We're going to be attempting to recast a little Home Alone.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a full panel for that one. We might even have a 5-person. We might even have a 5-person panel like we did for Ghostbusters for that one, because I believe we're going to have Richie Goodacre. We're going to try to have Chris Scott. Schedule pending. We're going to try to have him. And I believe, Carol, you were in the comments. We were going to try to reach out to you, see if you're available as well.
Yeah. So if you want to join us,
because you had it in there, you had it in your 64 as well. So, we're going to have a different panel for that. So, a lot of fun. So that should be a big mega episode. Jordan's a big fan of Home Alone as well.
Yeah.
I've seen it about 100 times. So,
that reminds me. There was one other thing I forgot to plug. So we're going to start doing this on the channel now. I discussed it with some of my channel members, and they're all down for it. We're going to start doing script read-throughs, so like reading scripts to movies and such, and like each person will get to play different characters and all that kind of stuff. And so we're gonna start it with Home Alone for the Christmas season. So we're gonna do a script read-through of Home Alone. So that'll be fun.
Yeah,
nice. That'll be cool. You have to decide if you want to do like your regular voices, you want to do characters as in the movie, or just wacky ones off the wall, like the Twisted Tunes thing we saw when we went to the convention, So
and then we'll also we're gonna have another Wheel of Movies probably next Thursday, probably not this one. So maybe after the show, Jordan, I might get you to spin the wheel for us real quick so we can start.
Sure.
We have to do that one on screen, but I can text Richie. Recast. You can look forward to our 11th episode of Recast. Will be for Home Alone. We'll double dose of Christmas, and then we'll get it in there, and then we'll do another one at some point in January. We'll we'll talk about that. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's what we got on tap for now. So yeah, I've got a little Die Hard tribute pulled up, so we'll play here at the end, but with the classical music, so we shouldn't get copyrighted for classical music.
Yeah,
because all that's copyright free. But yeah, so yeah, that'll do it for tonight on Recast. Thank you guys for joining me. This was a lot of fun trying to recast this classic. So for Steven Shepard, for Wolfman, for Jordan Anderson, I have been Austin Pez Howell, and Merry Christmas, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.